start another war in the Middle East, particularly before the elections, there is a strict limit on how far he's prepared to escalate. The Iranians know that. The Iranians know that he's desperate to meet with them and try to make a deal. So as a result of that, they own the higher rungs of the escalation ladder, and that's what they're doing now in terms of stepping up the pressure.
And the Iranian officials have sent a message, basically, that they are in no big hurry. They think time's on their side. We have Foreign Minister Zarif in September talking about how long any negotiation might take, and this is what he said.
If I were to start negotiating with this administration, it took us, last time, it took us 2 years to negotiate. This time it will take us even more because we know how the United States behaved. And let us assume that President Trump is re-elected. In 2 years' time, there is only 3 years left of the second term of President Trump.
So Ambassador Martin Indyk, he has sort of a good point here. I mean, this is not going to get resolved right away.
No, it's not. What the Iranians want to do is take Trump up on his invitation to negotiations and then have a long, drawn-out negotiation. In the meantime, they will not enter negotiations unless Trump indicates a willingness to ease the economic sanctions, perhaps with some new waivers on oil sales to China and India, which the Trump administration had been willing to do in an earlier phase of this confrontation. That would get them back to the table. That would de-escalate the situation. And then I think their plan is to drag it out because they don't trust Trump anymore. If they do a deal with him, they won't trust him not to abrogate it. And they want to know who the next president is going to be and whether he's going to live up to the deal as well.
As I say, one of the fundamental objections that President Trump had to the original deal, the JCPOA, was not curtailing Iran's ability to really foment terrorism in the region. We now have a Lebanon that really seems to be far less stable than it was. To what extent are people being sponsored by Iran really exacerbating that situation in Lebanon?
Well, first of all, the theory of Trump's case was that by putting maximum economic pressure on Iran, it would stifle their ability to fund their nefarious activities across the region. Well, that hasn't worked, manifestly hasn't worked. Their position in Yemen has grown stronger because of the continuation of the war there, and their support of the Houthis is stronger now than it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago when Trump came into office. To Lebanon, to your point in Lebanon, their support for Hezbollah has always been strong. There was some cracking of champagne bottles in the White House over the fact that the Iranians were dropping their subventions to Hezbollah. But that hasn't stopped Hezbollah from continuing to operate not just in Lebanon but in Syria as well. Now you have a situation where the Lebanese government is essentially controlled by Hezbollah. They are in the government, they have their representatives in the government, but because they control force in Lebanon, they are in effect in control of the government. The people are now in the streets, not just in Beirut, but also in the south where Hezbollah is supposed to be strong amongst the Shiite population. They are, in the hundreds of thousands coming out, protesting not only against the corruption and fecklessness of the government, and they've already succeeded in removing the Prime Minister, but they're also protesting against Hezbollah and against Iran. And this is putting the Iranians in a situation which they've never had to face before. Up to now, they've exploited the cracks in the Sunni world, using their Shia proxies to build their influence. Now that they're in control, they're under attack.
Many thanks to Ambassador Martin Indyk of the Council on Foreign Relations. Mayor Buttigieg has a new spring in his step. We talk with Bloomberg Politics editor Wendy Benjamin to know why that is. That's next. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio.
Directors of companies are responsible to boards.
Let's begin with the IPO that may not be for a long, long time.
Politicians are mindful of voters.
Are those gains all going to the elite?
Scholars pay attention to data.
Does it spread beyond manufacturing?
And nearly everyone at the top of these professions listens to Bloomberg Surveillance.
Everybody listens when I'm on your show.
Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Hi, I'm your host, Smokey Colbert, filling in for Smokey because after 75 years of...
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Turns out there's much more to say. Nearly 90% of wildfires are caused by us humans being careless, dumping our used barbecue coals willy-nilly. Guess the song was wrong. We did start the fire. That's why I respect Mother Nature and her trees, whether coniferous or new car scented. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Join us in New York City on November.
Do you remember picking out your engagement ring in the jeweler's window? Or choosing your first home? Or deciding the names of your children? When it comes to the important choices in life, you've always taken the greatest care. So shouldn't the same go for which firm of funeral directors you use? After all, that's an important choice too. At Dignity Funeral Directors, we're like you. We also take the greatest care. Our name as your assurance will be there by your side every step of the way. Just look for the sign that says Dignity. It's on all our branches and on the Dignity website. Dignity Funeral Directors, taking the greatest care.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want horrors, no problem. It's not real, it's not real, it's not real. Movies, I've got blockbusters. Or how about thrillers? They're gonna be on the edge of their seats with these. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus, month passes auto renew, terms apply.
Will cancer affect my sex life?
Your sex drive can disappear. The side effects may stop you.
Your sex life can easily stay.
When you search one question about cancer, you end up with millions of results which contradict each other. For clear and uncomplicated information, come to Cancer Research UK. Visit us online or give us a call on 0808 800 40 40. Cancer Research UK. Together, we will beat cancer.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
On this week's On the Media,
we really need to start framing this differently.
The way we report the story of the California wildfires, like blaming the power company, obscures the underlying structural problems.
I despair that our contemporary politics can in any way deal with the challenge that this century presents us.
Don't miss this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast from WNYC Studios on TuneIn today.
Right now, instead of hearing this, you could be listening to the music that keeps you moving with TuneIn Premium. Find today's biggest songs and all of your favorites commercial-free. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got the Dow, the S&P trading a little changed right now, at least on the S&P, down by half a point. The Dow is advancing 65, up 0.2%. That would be a record. We've got NASDAQ up 13, a gain there of just about 0.2%. Stocks have climbed from the lows of the day as investors digest the latest earnings and economic data, while also awaiting more news about trade talks between the U.S. and China. 10-year Treasury yields hitting their highest in September. The 10-year down 24.30 seconds. The yield now 1.86%. Gold down 1.8%, $14.82 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude rallying 1% now, $57.09 a barrel. Recapping, S&P little change, now up by less than half a point. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thanks very much to Charlie. Mayor Pete Buttigieg has been gaining ground in the polls and in the money, and it may be shifting the way he positions himself in the campaign for the Democratic presidential nomination. Welcome now, Bloomberg's political editor, Wendy Benjaminson. So, Wendy, you have a piece out. Your team has a piece out today on exactly how this is changing the profile of Mr. Buttigieg.
It really is. Excuse me. He has sort of come from behind, he was sort of in that big group of people polling in the single digits. And to be sure, he is still polling in the single digits. However, he is a solid in fourth place now. And in Iowa, he's even in third place in one poll above Joe Biden. So he came to this dinner Friday night exuding this new confidence, this, presidential sort of oratory, and being very free to criticize Biden and Warren.
Yeah, and one of the things he's taken issue with Senator Warren on is her health care approach, the Medicare for All approach. Yes. In fact, this is what he said. This is what he said, actually, in distancing himself from Senator Warren on that subject.
What is just not true is that hers is the only solution. This my way or the highway idea that either you're for kicking everybody off their private plans in 4 years or you're for business as usual. It's just not true. I'm proposing Medicare for all who want it.
Medicare for all who want it. So is this Pete Buttigieg, the candidate, positioning himself somewhat to the center side of Elizabeth Warren?
Absolutely. And I was surprised at one of the debates where he used the line, I trust the American people to choose their own way, or words to that effect. But the first part was, I trust the American people to make their own decisions, which is a real Republican line. It's not Democrats who generally, the general philosophy is, we're the government and we're here to help you. This is a very sort of attempt to pull away the so-called never Trumper Republicans or moderate Republicans who might not want to vote for President Trump again, but and who might be shopping in the Democratic store.
How much of Pete Buttigieg's strategy depends on doing at least very well in Iowa, if not winning?
I think winning Iowa, or at least coming in second or third, is crucial for him. Now, we all know there have been candidates named Bill Clinton and Barack Obama who didn't win Iowa, but Pete Buttigieg is selling himself as the mayor from the Midwest, the guy who understands the Midwest that the Democrats failed to capture in 2016. So if that's his core message, I'm the guy who knows the Midwest, well, you better win the first Midwest state or do well in.
At the same time, he has a fair amount of money, as I understand it, that he can deploy, particularly in the ground game in Iowa.
He does. His fundraising is prodigious. He's doing much better than former Vice President Joe Biden in raising money. Silicon Valley can't stop throwing money at him. Wall Street seems to like him. They're all very impressed by his centrist message and his fresh approach to things in a way that perhaps Joe Biden, despite his decades of experience in the federal government, isn't inspiring in people. So he's doing very well with money.
What about on the demographics? Because there's been some reporting that Pete Buttigieg does not appeal to the full range of demographics that typically a Democratic candidate has to attract.
That's very true, and this is going to be an issue for him because after Iowa and New Hampshire, two states that I believe their populations are in the 98% white, is Nevada with a heavy Latino population and South Carolina where 60% of Democratic voters are African American. And Pete Buttigieg not only is from the Midwest and very, sort of middle of the road there, he is openly gay, and studies have shown and polls have shown that is a problem for Black and Latino voters of the older generation. There's a very generational split. In fact, House Democratic leader Jim Clyburn, an African American from South Carolina, said just this weekend that older Black voters have a problem with Pete Buttigieg, and their only problem with him is that he's gay. However, Clyburn said his own grandson works for Pete Buttigieg in South Carolina. So that shows, where Buttigieg could get an inroad with non-white voters is with the younger generation.
How worried is the Biden camp? Do we know about Pete Buttigieg? And I mentioned Biden specifically, Vice President Biden, because he feels like Pete Buttigieg is positioning himself as the alternative moderate in the race.
That's right. He is. He is sort of the younger, fresher Joe Biden kind of person. And that should worry the Biden campaign a little bit. I mean, Biden is campaigning on the fact that he's been around the city for 40 years. He knows how it works. He's a good guy. He's a moderate, and everybody should vote for him because of that. And Buttigieg is saying, yeah, I'm a good guy too, and I have more political experience than Donald Trump did, even being just the mayor of South Bend. And so he is an alternative to Biden, no question.
Give us a sense in Iowa, if Iowa is critical, particularly for Pete Buttigieg, Mayor Pete, what would change the numbers at this point? I mean, how many undecideds remain in Iowa? And if you were running his campaign, who would you be targeting?
If I were running Pete Buttigieg's campaign, I think I would be targeting the voters who have questions about Warren and Sanders. The race is really now a 4-person race in Iowa. It is Biden, Warren, Sanders, and Buttigieg. And Sanders and Warren are so close on so many issues that they have sort of the same base, and they're just sort of competing for who gets that. And I think what Buttigieg has to do is find those people in Iowa who are not excited by Joe Biden, who may not come out for Joe Biden, and peel those away from him.
Is Pete Buttigieg spending essentially all of his time in Iowa meeting with the people?
He is spending a lot of time in Iowa, and he's spending more time than Biden is, which is probably not a great idea for the Biden campaign. But he is also spending a lot of time in New Hampshire. He did a bus tour in Iowa last weekend. He's doing one this coming weekend in New Hampshire, and he spent some time there earlier this week. So he's kind of going back and forth between Iowa and New Hampshire, which isn't a bad strategy.
Okay, many thanks to Bloomberg's Wendy Benjaminson.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you, Wendy. Okay, President Trump had a setback yesterday when a New York Court of Appeals ruled that he couldn't block his accountants from returning tax documents over. We talked with Ellie Honig of Lowenstein Stanler about his legal options. That's coming up next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio.
This is the Bloomberg Market Minute. U.S. stocks are posting near record gains. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 58 points. S&P 500 is flat. The Nasdaq is up 11 points. Tapestry, the parent of Coach and Kate Spade, posted a quarterly profit that topped analyst estimates. The CEO says international business was stronger than the company's domestic business. There's some positive signs in the U.S. service industries. The Institute for Supply Management's non-manufacturing index rose last month. The reading of employment, orders, and business activity improved, indicating stable but moderate growth in the biggest part of the U.S. economy. And there's a new jewel in the Anheuser-Busch InBev crown. It's Michelob Ultra. A bottle contains less than half the carbs found in Bud Light, and demand is surging. Donna Wilson, Bloomberg Radio.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. She wasn't even really sure where she was at.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, The world is listening. Are you interested in a challenge?
Spot a bargain in the Debenhams Spectacular event. Up to 30% off throughout the store and up to 15% off beauty and fragrance. Shop now in store and at debenhams.com.
London. Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Can I have chemo at home?
It's only suitable for a couple of types of treatment.
When you search one question about cancer, you end up with millions of results which contradict each other. For clear and uncomplicated information, come to Cancer Research UK. Visit us online or give us a call on 0808 800 40 40. Cancer Research UK. Together, we will beat cancer.
This weekend, Volvo are offering 0% APR finance on a Volvo Select approved used car. Which means, this weekend, 0% of household chores will be finished. So visit your local Volvo retailer this weekend and drive an approved used car with 0% APR finance back home. A messy home.
Available on used vehicles up to 4 years old. Participating retailers. 50% minimum deposit on minimum finance amount of £7,000. Conditional sale, terms and conditions apply. Finance subject to status. 18 plus. Guarantee may be required. Volvo Car Financial Services.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
All the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
Pulled into the end zone, and he's yanked in by a lineman for the touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
Oh, it's gone! Into the end zone! Seahawks win! Touchdown!
This Thursday, hear the home and away call as the 4-5 Los Angeles Chargers visit the 4-4 Oakland Raiders at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
15-10, 5, touchdown, Denver!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Balance of Power with David Weston.
Coming up on Balance of Power, President Trump says he's going to the Supreme Court to block his tax information from being turned over to the New York District Attorney. We're joined by my colleague June Grasso to take us talk about his chances at the High Court. But first, let's get a market check with Charlie Pellet.
And thank you very much, David Weston. Here's what's going on. U.S. equities, they are virtually flat on the day. Yes, the Dow is higher, NASDAQ higher as well, but the S&P 500 index going nowhere. Right now, it is at 3,077. That is a drop of less than 0.1%. 0.8%. Equities have climbed from the lows of the day as investors digest the latest earnings and economic data, while also awaiting more news about trade talks between the U.S. and China. 10-year Treasury yields hitting their highest since September. Right now, we have got the 10-year down 22.30 seconds at yield 1.85%. Oil up for a third day. West Texas Intermediate up 1% now, 57.10 a barrel. Brent crude is at 62.72, up by 1% again. Gold down 1.8%. $14.83 the ounce. The U.S. trade deficit in goods and services narrowed in September as the White House trade war raged on. That story from Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
September's trade shortfall totaled $52.5 billion, the smallest gap since April. Trade with China dropped amid a new round of White House tariffs, deepening a slump for exporters on both sides of the Pacific Ocean. Merchandise imports from China narrowed to a 3-year low, while American exports to China hit a 5-month low. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
Peloton Interactive shares tumbling after frustrating investors with a focus on growth rather than profitability. Shares of Peloton Interactive down now by 5%, and after last night's earnings report, we've got Uber shares lower by 9.3%. Again, recapping mixed day, the Dow higher by 71, up 0.3%. S&P flat right now, unchanged. Nasdaq up 13, up by 0.2%. I'm Charlie Pelletat. A Bloomberg Business Flash. Balance of Power continues, the Tuesday edition. Once again, here he is, David Weston.
Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. Yesterday, the Second Circuit upheld a lower court ruling that President Trump couldn't block the district court from getting access to his tax information. And his lawyer said immediately they'd take it to the Supreme Court. Welcome now my colleague June Grasso and Ellie Honig. He practices white-collar criminal law at Lowenstein Sandler. Earlier, Mr. Honig served in the Southern District U.S. Attorney's Office as an assistant United States attorney. So welcome. So Ellie, let's start with you. They say they're taking it to the Supreme Court. Give me a sense of how unusual this case is. That is to say, a subpoena for a grand jury to a third party, the accountant, to get some tax information.
Well, it's very unusual. I think it's entirely unprecedented, David, when you're talking about the President of the United States. This is what the courts call an issue of first impression. And the court's decision yesterday was the President does not have the ability to step in and prevent an outsider, a third party, a bank, Mazars, an accounting firm, from complying with a subpoena, a grand jury subpoena. And in the course of making that ruling, the court also rejected the president's argument that while he's in office, not only can he not be prosecuted, which remains an open issue, but he cannot even be investigated by a criminal prosecutor. And the Second Circuit, the Court of Appeals in New York City, rejected that and said, no, the president can be investigated while he's in office, and then that evidence, theoretically, can be used to charge him later. So it's really a first of its kind opinion.
So, Ellie, in the past, often presidents have argued, you cannot proceed against me because it'll distract me from my job. I can't spend a lot of time doing this because I'm trying to run the country after all. In this instance, this would not require the president to do anything, right? Because, as I say, it's a third party. It's his accountant.
It's a good point, and that's exactly why the Second Circuit drew that distinction. They said there's a difference between a subpoena that would be served on a president, and we don't have a clear answer on whether that's enforceable or not. It certainly was in the Richard Nixon case, versus, as the court said here, it's a different scenario because the president didn't even have to have anything to do with this. This was entirely really between the Manhattan DA's office and Mazars. And then the president and the White House jumped in and said, hold on a second, though. We don't want you to comply. But you're right. The burden and the distraction issue is not nearly what it would be in the case of a subpoena against the president or in the most extreme case, an indictment of the president. And that is one of the main reasons DOJ has this policy against indicting a sitting president.
So, Ellie, this is the second federal appeals court to rule against Trump regarding these tax returns because the D.C. Court of Appeals ruled that his accounting firm had to turn over tax records for a congressional subpoena. Will the fact that there are two circuit courts who agree on this have any impact on whether the Supreme Court takes the case?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the first thing people need to understand is you don't automatically get to go to the Supreme Court. You do automatically get to go up to the Court of Appeals, which is the two decisions that you just referenced, June. The Supreme Court is very sparing in what cases it takes. It only takes low single-digit percentages of all the cases brought before it. And one of the main factors the Supreme Court looks at is, do we have disagreement there in the different federal courts, federal circuits? And here we really only have two opinions, and they happen to agree with one another. So I actually think there's a chance. Obviously, these cases have constitutional dimensions, and they're of the importance that the Supreme Court is more inclined to take. But on the other hand, there's no disagreement at the moment, and I don't know that the law is particularly controversial. So I think the Supreme Court passes on one or both of these cases, and if that happens, then the Court of Appeals rulings that we've already seen will stand and be final.
The Circuit Court, the Second Circuit, made this a very narrow, cautious sort of ruling. Do you think that the court did that because they wanted it not to have too many political implications of, opening up a Pandora's box of subpoenas against the president?
Yeah, as a general rule, courts always try to rule on as narrow grounds as possible. And I think the Second Circuit really was careful to do that here. They basically said, we know there's this dispute out there about whether a sitting president can be charged. We're not deciding that. We know there's also a theoretical dispute and a dispute that's come up over the years about whether a sitting president can be subpoenaed. We are not deciding that. All we're saying is the president cannot jump in and essentially intercept the subpoena that's been sent to a third party and stop that third party from complying. And as a necessary part of that, and the court said explicitly, there's no constitutional problem with the prosecutor investigating a president while he's in office. They're not saying anything about whether he can be charged, but he certainly can be investigated.
Ellie, as you say, review in the Supreme Court is discretionary, and they don't exercise that discretion very often in a given year. At the same time, one other factor besides a split in the circuit sometimes is what the SG, the Solicitor General, has to say. Yeah. The court can call for the views of the Solicitor General. How much pressure would there be on the Solicitor General in this instance with the President of the United States saying, you got to go to bat for me?
Yeah, it's an interesting decision because on the one hand, I think what the scenario you just outlined, David, is quite possible where the president says, hey, we've already made clear we're fighting this to the death and we'll take it all the way up the line. On the other hand, though, if I was advising the president or the Solicitor General, I might say, hold up a second here. We might want to pick our battles because if you take it up to the Supreme Court and you lose there, then it is set in stone. And so sometimes in all matters of litigation, people make decisions, well, we might have one avenue of appeal left, but we might not want to create bad law, as lawyers say sometimes. We might not want to actually bring this up and see what the Supreme Court says, given that virtually every judge that's heard these cases so far has come out on the side of enforcing the subpoenas. It was both district judges in D.C. and New York, all three Court of Appeals judges in New York, and 2-1 in D.C. So that's 5, 6, 7-1 right now in terms of federal judges who've heard this. So they may not want to press their luck.
Ellie, while we have you, I want to ask you a question about some of the witnesses that the House committees have been calling, particularly White House counsel Don McGahn and former Deputy National Security Advisor Charles Kupperman. They're claiming that they're absolutely immune from congressional subpoena, and that's before a couple of judges right now. How's that likely to turn out?
So, June, I was actually helping cover those. I think both of those are going to go in favor of the subpoenas. In particular, I was in the courtroom for the McGahn argument, and the judge in that case was very well prepared and really seemed skeptical towards DOJ's position that McGahn was absolutely immune. Essentially, the judge there seemed to grasp onto this notion that this is an overreach. This is an overreach by the executive branch. We do have a constitutional system of checks and balances, and the ability to conduct reasonable oversight and compel testimony through subpoenas is an essential part of Congress's check on the executive branch. The Kupperman case is actually sort of a step behind the McGahn case procedurally. They're still doing briefing and argument, so I didn't get a good read on the judge there, but I think it'll come out the same.
Okay, many thanks to June Grasso, my colleague, and to Ellie Honig of Lowenstein Sander. As we go to break, an important breaking news story, potentially, here, Walgreen Boots may be taking itself private. It would be the largest such transaction, LBO, in history if it goes forward. That's breaking news right now. Stock is up about 15% on the news. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet future evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Join us in New York City on November 20.
It's another Tuesday evening. Yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Experience Mexican culture and relax by the Caribbean Sea. Fly from London Gatwick to Cancun with British Airways from £275 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London. Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
Hey, can't watch the big NBA game because your life's just too busy? I've got some news for you. TuneIn Premium is the answer to all your problems. Hear every home and away game live or on demand everywhere you go. Just search NBA to listen.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Adam Grant, and this is Work Life, my podcast with Ted. I study how to make work not suck.
And it's defined like this.
Blackout is a suspense-filled thriller from Endeavor Audio and Q-Code.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Couldn't. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn. College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. U.S. stocks, they are trading mixed right now. We've got the S&P lower, little change, down by half a point, close to a record of 3,077. The Dow higher by 87, up 0.3%, and NASDAQ up 12. That's a gain of 0.1%. Investors are digesting the latest earnings and economic data while awaiting more news about trade talks between the U.S. and China. Speaking of earnings, Uber shares down 9.6%, Peloton down 6.3%, Shake Shack plunging 19.2%. 10-year down 22 seconds, yield now 1.85%, gold down 1.9%, $14.81 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.1%, $57.16 a barrel. Recapping, the Dow higher by 84, up 0.3, NASDAQ up 11, up 0.1, and the S&P 500 index now lower by 1 point. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Balance of power continues, and once again, here is David Weston.
Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. Live from the Interactive Broker Studio, this is Balance of Power, and I am David Weston. It's the economy, stupid. That was a theme of Clinton's War Room in 1992, and maybe it works today as well, at least when it comes to handicapping the 2020 presidential race. To take us through the models some economists are studying, we have now Carl Riccadonna. He's chief U.S. economist for Bloomberg Economics, and Katya Dmitrieva, who covers the U.S. economy for Bloomberg News. Welcome to both of you. So, Carl, you're a resident economist here. How much stock do you put in these models? We haven't heard from a Yale professor, Ray Fair. We've got Oxford Economics. We've got Moody's Analytics with Mark Zandi.
Well, we certainly have to pay attention to economic conditions, and even more simplistic than these models is something called the misery index, which is something comprised that economists came up with years ago, decades ago, in fact, simply looking at the pain households are experiencing, and the pain comes from two channels, either too high inflation or too high unemployment. And so you lump the two together, and that sum tends to be pretty useful in terms of predicting election outcomes, that when the pain threshold or the pain index is rising, voters tend to throw the bums out regardless of which party they're coming from. And of course, when the threshold is improving, then voters tend to reward the incumbents. And we can see this in a whole slew of elections going back all the way to the 1960s.
So, Katya, how about it? I mean, if you look at inflation way low, I think it's fair to say by historic term. If you look at unemployment, certainly way low by historical standards. We tend at Bloomberg to talk about the fact that we're below 3% growth, maybe we're below 2% growth. As a practical matter, where will the economy be next November? What are the chances that either inflation or unemployment will rise substantially?
They're not likely to change too much from where they are right now. And I think the point that a lot of these economists are making in these various models is that is still good enough to get Trump reelected. Because to Carl's point, it's not just looking at the entire economy as a whole. It's certain economic indicators and what they're showing, which is not really always reflective of every single person's experience, but also the data sometimes sometimes obscures what's actually really happening or trends that are happening. And finally, just a note of caution, obviously, this is just economic indicator data. This is not encompassing any of the sort of scandal aspects of it or foreign policy aspects. So you do have to take it with a bit of a grain of salt there as well.
You had to bring that in, didn't you? I thought we were pretty nice and clean. It's just pure economics here for a minute.
Now, David,
it's never just pure economics.
Stick with those economic indicators, and I said they're very useful in predicting election outcomes, especially when there's a clear direction to the data, right? It goes back to Ronald Reagan in 1980 in the debates telling Jimmy Carter, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago, right? And voters responded, that resonated with voters. And so this notion of changing economic conditions, as I mentioned, is very useful predicting election outcomes. Two examples that didn't work out. So 1976 and 2000. Now, can you remember something that rhymes with impeachment that happened in both of those cycles leading up to those elections? So there's almost, two is hardly a sufficient sample size, but in those two instances, when there were impeachment proceedings, that the economic barometers did not work as well.
So Carl's ganging up with Katya here, basically. Just saying it all comes back to impeachment. But let me ask a different question, Carl. When we talked with Speaker Pelosi, her response on the good job numbers that we just gotten out that day were, okay, fine, that's a top-line number for the whole country as a whole. How is it distributed? How are people feeling as you go down through the income classes? Are they feeling like they're participating? As she called it, she thought there was sort of like a stagnation in wages.
Right. So this goes back to kitchen table economics, right? Not looking at GDP and productivity trends, but instead thinking about the average person and how they're actually faring in that regard. In fact, if we look at employment levels and wage prospects and whatnot, without a doubt, lower education tiers and lower income demographics have lagged behind the broader economy. However, we're getting into the mature stages of the economic cycle where they are benefiting, and so we can see groups that historically had higher than average levels of unemployment. Those are at record lows, whether it's people with lower degrees of education or certain demographic groups and whatnot. So they are feeling the benefit. The catch in my mind, because certainly the economy looks to be on a pretty good trajectory through the end of next year. We're forecasting about 2% GDP growth next year, so not great, but certainly good enough to avoid recession risk. However, politics is local, as they say, and when we look at things like the manufacturing ISM, it tells us that the factory sector is in a recession, and certainly the path to the Trump White House went through the Rust Belt, and the path to re-election is almost certainly going to have to go through the Rust Belt as well. And so when we look at things, for instance, the Philadelphia Fed puts together leading indicators by state, we can see that some of the states that are heading towards contraction over the next 6 months, based on the Philly Fed's indices, are those Rust Belt states. And so that means that it may be the economy stupid, but certainly at the local level, it's going to be a more difficult row to hoe for Donald Trump in that region.
So, Katya, let me pick up on exactly that point from Carl, because Carl Smith, a different Carl, has a piece out on Bloomberg Opinion today where he says, as you look at these overall economic models, you need to go sort of state by state, particularly the critical states. And he picked up on Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania. And he said the story and the economics of those three states is not nearly as pretty. And those could be key to whoever's going to win the presidential election.
Absolutely, and that was a great piece. And one thing we haven't talked about in all this conversation about indicators and what the data shows versus what else is out there, sort of kitchen table economics, just net wealth and net income in general. So one of the main themes of the campaigns has been inequality, and there's a reason for that. It's because we're seeing a lot of the net wealth accruing to people in the top 10%, even the top 1%. So whereas the rest of America haven't even actually seen their net wealth increasing. So that's like sort of total assets, not even just your take-home pay, but sort of you come home and your total assets. And that has lagged, unfortunately. We forget that the U.S. is the least equal country of all developed countries. So these are all things that played in 2016. They're going to play another role in 2020. And to the article you're just referring to, it is going to be very regional. And if we're talking about, well, where are the cracks in the economy right now? Manufacturing. Where is manufacturing big? A lot of these swing states. And those jobs are actually declining.
No question. Okay, many thanks to Bloomberg's Carl Riccadonna and Katya Dmitrieva. In the meantime, we have Jason Kelly and Carol Massar still out in sunny California. I'm not sure if you guys are coming back. You're having too much fun out there. Tell us what's coming up on Bloomberg Business Week.
Never come back.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
We're going to be talking about all the issues that are on the minds of independent financial advisors. We're at the Charles Schwab Impact Conference in San Diego. Yes, it's sunny. We'll see if investors and advisors feel the same way.
We're going to find that out. Also going to dig into Peloton earnings today. John Foley, the CEO, is going to be along in just a few minutes to break that down. Investors don't love it, David, so far.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that. And I hope you bring some sun back with you because we don't have much right here, right now. That's coming up on Bloomberg Business Week. In the meantime, that does it for Balance of Power today on Bloomberg Radio. I'm David Weston. We hope you'll tune in again tomorrow.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
You see.
It's another Tuesday evening. Yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and explore tropical rainforests. Fly from London Gatwick to Costa Rica with British Airways from £218 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Pulled into the end zone, and he's yanked in by a lineman for the touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
Seahawks win! Touchdown!
This Thursday, hear the home and away call as the 4-5 Los Angeles Chargers visit the 4-4 Oakland Raiders at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
15-10, 5, touchdown, Denver!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today. College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
Today at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
You're never as smart as you think in a bull market and probably not as dumb as you think in a bear market.
Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine.
You need those human skills to really get the true value out of the technology.
Plus, global business, finance, and tech news as it happens.
Oh my goodness, Amazon. Right. They're going to take over the world.
Full transparency, we have one. We both use them, like them.
We each have one. We don't share a Peloton.
Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Massar and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
We are live from the Charles Schwab Impact Conference, the industry's largest gathering of independent financial advisors. Welcome to Bloomberg Business Week for this Tuesday, November 5th, 2019. I'm Carol Massar along with my co-host Jason Kelly. We are live in San Diego.
Well, and when they say the largest gathering, they're literally advisors as far as the eye can see. Some their shoe shine, some headed to an early lunch. They're everywhere, meeting and greeting. We're going to have a lot of them here with us throughout the show.
And
We're going to talk about Peloton earnings.
We are. All right, first, let's get to Charlie Pellet. He's got an update on the trade. It's in the green, barely. Charlie, what's up?
In the green, barely, and as we speak, just moved to unchanged. We'll call it unch right now with the S&P at 3,078. Could see a record perhaps today, depending on how we turn. We have got the Dow higher by 75 points, up 0.3%. NASDAQ up 12 now. That is a gain of 0.2%. You guys mentioned Peloton, prominent declining stock today, down 7.2%. Uber after earnings down 9.8%. Shake Shack after earnings down 18.9%. Tenured on 22-30 seconds yield there 1.85%. And we've got crude oil rallying 1.1%. West Texas Intermediate now 57.19 a barrel. So the S&P unchanged. The Dow higher by 71, up 0.3. NASDAQ up 11, a gain there of 0.1%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week live from San Diego. And as Carol mentioned, we are going to dig into Peloton earnings. As we mentioned there in the intro, we both have one. We both share a Peloton.
Not a Peloton built for two yet.
No, not yet. But maybe we'll pose that question to John Foley, the CEO of Peloton. He's going to be along in just a few minutes to help us understand what maybe the market isn't understanding about where Peloton is right now.
And it's a reminder that investors, they like growth, but they also want to see profitability. So that is certainly going to be one of the focuses, or the focus, I should say, of our conversation. Many members of the Schwab community are here in San Diego for the Charles Schwab Impact Conference. They're going to be joining us on air to talk fixed income, why the U.S. remains a stable, bright spot, and also talk about charitable giving. So we're going to look at really the financial community from so many different angles.
Absolutely. And we're going to catch up with Amy Nelson. She's the founder of The Riveter. She's on a mission to change the way women are seen as leaders in the workplace. It's an issue we talk about a lot. We talked about it yesterday at Stanford. That was just yesterday that we were up naming the number one business school in America. All right, for now, let's set the Business Week agenda. We head back to New York for that, and the boys are there. Markets editor Joe Weisenthal and stocks editor Dave Wilson, both in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Dave, I want to start with you. You heard Charlie say unch is the word of the day. What is underneath this trade today from your perspective? What's the one thing people need to be thinking about?
Well, if you had to think about anything, think about how, shall we say, bond proxies are falling out of favor. That's really true in today's trading. While there isn't a whole lot of overall movement in the S&P 500, real estate and utility stocks are kind of taking it on the chin here. And if you want to point to two areas of the market that people go to when they want to generate some income and don't want to be bothered with bonds, well, those kinds of stocks would fit the bill. I mean, you got the real estate index within the S&P 500 down almost 2%, utility index down 0.8%. So, that kind of push lately that we've seen into those sorts of shares that people tend to favor for their relatively high dividends, it just looks like it's reversing itself a bit here.
Yeah. All right, good to know. Joe Weisenthal, tell us what you think is the one thing investors need to know on this Tuesday.
I think there's a couple of different things. I mean, obviously, Dave mentioning the bond proxies. It is striking to look at rates on government bonds moving substantially higher today, despite the lack of move in the equity market. So even though the equity markets are taking a breather, people are still selling bonds. And then the other thing is, I think the data, more reasons for overall optimism. U.S. services or non-manufacturing ISM, pretty good, coming in better than expectations. Some of the global data lately, everything's at the margins. It's still not great, but signs of a trough. So I think this narrative that there is some sort of Q4 trough happening in the data and that there'll be a pickup in the global economy somewhat is a big part of this story. And then you tie that into the trade, an obvious trade story, and people are growing more optimistic that there'll be a deal there. And you can see why people are selling safety assets like treasuries.
All All right, what's on your mind, Carol Masser?
I'll tell you what's on my mind. This story, Jason, among the most read. I don't know if you guys back in New York saw this as well, but it's a story with a headline. It's by Rich Miller, and it talks about the mortgage liquidity squeeze that's been flagged as a risk to Jay Powell over at the Fed and also U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. So these regulators, including Mnuchin and Powell, have been put on notice about the risk of an economically damaging cash crunch in the $11 trillion home mortgage market. I feel like, wait, deja vu. We've kind of been here before. And so there's increasing concern about the growth of shadow lenders, and this is a potential concern. So I do feel like, again, this gets back to private, public market, maybe visibility that we don't see that's going on. I can't tell you about the amount of conversations I feel like we keep having around the country about, okay, the economic data points say things feel pretty good. I don't see a recession, and yet we see pressure points on our economy. And I do wonder if because things are happening increasingly in the private markets that we're missing something.
Right. My one thing, and I really like what you said there, my one thing is very local to here. It's all about Chuck Schwab getting up, legendary guy. He was on our show just a few weeks ago. He got up before this massive crowd here and said, I hated commissions. I didn't like them then. I wanted to get rid of them. I hate them now. I took them away. And that is certainly front of mind here among all of these advisors. We're going to have our own John Gittleson, who's here, our BN guy on the ground with us in about an hour or so to give us a sense of what's going on here.
Well, what I love, and right, guys, Dave and Joe, I mean, the question was when Schwab came out, right? And they said, okay, no more commissions. We're not going to charge for trades. All right. We all obviously made the assumption, okay, wait, what? Isn't this how you made, money? But there are other areas, Joe, right, within their business, and Dave, that's how they're making money.
Yeah, they have all kinds of other aspects, also services to investors, the float that they collect from the money that people have sitting on the account, securities, lending. So it was increasingly one of those things where the trading commission was less important. And look, Schwab has used its muscle in order to put pressure on the entities that don't have these other businesses that were much more trading dependent. And I'm just looking at Schwab shares, and they have more than completely erased its losses from the beginning of October. Whereas if you look at a competitor like a TD Ameritrade, they've bounced back a little bit, but still have not fully recovered.
All right. Well, we're going to leave it there, guys. Thank you so much. Joe Weisenthal, markets editor for Bloomberg, off to do some TV. What'd you miss coming up at 4 p.m. Wall Street time? And Dave Wilson, you'll be back with us after the close of trading for your chart and stock of the day. One other thing that I wanted to mention is a scoop that crossed the Bloomberg about Walgreens. This in play, it sounds like, could be taken private again. This is a company
this blows my mind.
It's unbelievable. It would be a $60-70 billion LBO. This would be the biggest we've ever seen in history. So, looking at some take private options there, Stefano Pessina is the guy, and he was put in place by KKR back in the day. And so you do wonder what it would take to take this company public. Obviously, they think it is undervalued. It is not totally unheard of to have a company go public and then go private again.
But of this magnitude?
It'd be huge.
Yeah, it would be huge. And I think this plays into, again, the conversations we have about so much money in the private sector, whether it's private equity firms and so on, and then having the ability to put that money to work.
And it goes back to what you were saying just a few minutes ago around public and private valuations. There is certainly some disconnect there. Sometimes it goes one way, sometimes it goes the other. Sometimes it's a WeWork situation, and sometimes it's a Peloton situation. We're going to get into that in just a minute with the CEO of Peloton, John Foley.
All right, looking forward to that. In the meantime, let's get a check on world and national news headlines. Back over to Bob Moon we go, back in our New York studio. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Carol. Democrats carrying out the impeachment inquiry into President Trump's conduct today released hundreds of pages of testimony from two top diplomats, Kurt Volker, the former special envoy to Ukraine, and Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the European Union. And there was a significant revision to Sondland's testimony. He acknowledges delivering a quid pro quo message to Ukraine. He testified that a promise by Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden's son and the 2016 election was a condition that would have to be complied with for the country's leaders to get a meeting with Trump. And Volker defended Joe Biden's actions with Ukraine as vice president, saying it was the right policy. Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland is on the House Judiciary and Oversight Committee. He says all the transcripts tell the same story. President Trump tried to shake down Ukraine's government.
Everyone is able to see these career diplomats, these wonderful public servants who are coming forward over and against the objections of the White House to testify truthfully. And what they're telling us is, they never saw anything like this in their careers.
3 committees leading the House impeachment probe are asking White House Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney to appear for a closed-door interview on Friday. They say they believe he has firsthand knowledge of President Trump's dealings with Ukraine. Drug cartel gunmen ambushed 3 SUVs along a dirt road, slaughtering at least 6 children and 3 women, all of them U.S. citizens living in northern Mexico. 8 children were found alive, some wounded. President Trump is urging Mexico to wage war on the cartels. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. I'm Bob Moon.
In the real world, there are no rabbits in hats, crystal balls, or cards that turn into money. Instead, you get business information from top-tier analysts and experts.
What should expectations be for this latest round of negotiations?
That's actually better, isn't it?
They're both trying to say they have the upper hand.
Bloomberg Markets with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
The markets.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium.
He shoots it. It's good. It's a 1-point lead. They don't have a timeout.
Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss.
You're off to Wiggins, straight away on the triple try. Bingo! He knocks it down at the buzzer.
The defending champions, Toronto Raptors, are in LA to take on the red-hot LA Lakers. Tip-off is at 9:30 p.m. Eastern this Sunday. Search NBA on TuneIn to follow your favorite NBA team today.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Adam Grant, and this is Work Life, my podcast with Ted. I study how to make work not suck.
And it's defined like this.
Blackout is a suspense-filled thriller from Endeavor Audio and Q-Code.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond, define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal, every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern, only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio on the app. Explore exclusive content. Learn about hot new podcasts and get alerted when the big game, well, it's about to begin. Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We are looking at an update here on Wall Street with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing right now. We've got equities trading at records as investors continue to digest the latest batch of earnings and economic data while awaiting more news about trade talks between the U.S. and China. S&P, little changed, higher now by a point at 3,079. That is a gain of just about 0.1%. The Dow higher by 86, up by 0.3%. NASDAQ up 16. That is a gain of 0.2%. 10-year down 22.30 seconds. The yield right now is at 1.85%. 10-year treasuries hitting their highest in September. Crude oil pushing higher up 1.3%. West Texas Intermediate crude 57.27 a barrel. Brent 63.02 up by 1.4%. Gold down 1.8%. 14.83 the ounce. Again, recapping the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ, they're all higher. S&P up now by a point. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
It is indeed. Charlie Pellet, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. We're live from the Charles Schwab Impact Conference in San Diego, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
What everybody's saying.
All right, so clearly one of the most watched IPOs this year has been that of Peloton. And yet there seems to be a little bit of a misunderstanding, it feels like, in terms of the public markets. Earnings out today, the stock down about 7.5%, not as low as it was a little bit earlier. So let's put some questions to the man himself, John Foley, the CEO of Peloton, back in our New York studio. John, I'm sorry we're not there with you. It feels sort of weird that, you're in our house and we don't even bother to show up. But we appreciate you coming in. Nice to talk to you.
It's nice to talk to you. It's always great to be on your show, Jason and Carol.
All right, so help us understand what you saw today. You put the numbers out. What were the highlights for you, and what's the miscommunication or the misunderstanding that you're seeing?
Well, I think you're talking in generic terms what the confusion is, but let me just say something specific, that there's some real confusion around how we did. A couple of articles I've read in the last hour said that we missed our earnings, and that's not true at all. So there's some confusion from the journalist side, and I think it revolves around a misquoted share count on an EPS basis. But let me tell you that the consensus expectations on the bottom line was that we were going to lose $83 million, and we only lost $21 million. So we dramatically beat on the bottom line as we did on the top line. I think the consensus was 198 million revenue on the top line, and we did 228 million, so a 16% beat. So really nice beat on the top line, really nice beat on the bottom line. Interestingly, the soundbite, Jason, I'll give you is that it was again triple-digit growth on the top line, so 103%, and only single-digit EBITDA losses. So I think it was a great quarter, and we're very excited about it.
Well, John, and I do wonder, it's funny, when Jason and I have had a lot of conversations with folks that run publicly held companies, they say we really focus on investors, not necessarily the analyst community, not necessarily on the media, but we're more concerned with our investor base. And I do wonder about what's the story that you talk about with them, because, there was a story that our Mark Gurman had on about how you guys have recently bought a design firm that kind of helped out Facebook and Google. And I think, you are an exercise company, but you're a lot more. Help us understand what the longer term vision is.
Yeah, interestingly, I don't want to be dismissive of the investors, but I did hear Jack Ma speak a couple of years ago, and he talked about his first constituent is his employees, and his second constituent is his customers, and a distant third is investors. And I would say we're not that different from that. We care deeply about our team. We're trying to create the best place to work in the world, and we care deeply about our members, and we are delighting our members. We now have 1.6 million members across the globe. We're going to Germany in the next 30 days. But to your question, Carol, that particular M&A was back to people was focused around an acqui-hire of some fantastic hardware and software engineers out of the Valley that we've worked with in the past, and they're just world class. So we will look to do acqui-hires where it makes sense. We also announced that we've bought a strategic manufacturing partner in Taiwan that I think will pay dividends and bear fruit in the coming years as we scale our supply chain, as we get more familiar with our upstream supply chain, and as we have over time structural cost advantage. As we try to win what we believe could be a global winner-take-all technology platform opportunity.
John, how frustrated are you? Because I do think we're in an interesting environment where all of a sudden, all companies that are either going public are caught in this. All right, folks. Yeah, I'm happy that you're growing, but we're increasingly caring much more about the profitability picture. And I know you clarified at the top what's going on, but I feel like everybody's kind of getting grouped together. You're a little frustrated.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Carol. You're absolutely right that it does feel like there's some clustering in an unfortunate way, because what we are building at Peloton is very special, again, from a team perspective and a business model perspective and the changing the lives of people who have Peloton memberships. It is very special, very unique, very different than these other businesses on all kinds of different levels. But I wouldn't say I'm that frustrated. It's a little bit of a head scratcher, of course, as we blow through our earnings and did a fantastic job on the top and bottom line. To your point, we had both hyper growth, triple digit growth, and we moved closer to profitability. So for us, it's not an either or, it's a both, and we're very proud of that.
All right, so look around the corner for us, John. Obviously the growth that you're seeing on the various platforms, the various modalities. Where are you seeing it geographically? Is it more bike heavy? Is it more tread heavy? And where are you looking over the next quarter or two in terms of accelerating that?
Yeah, we're investing in all of those things. To your point, Jason, our Canadian business is doing ahead of schedule. Our UK business ahead of schedule. Our German business on schedule for the launch. Right. We're already selling bikes there. Our tread business is ahead of our expectations. We're investing heavily in digital, which is, you can download our app on your Android device or your iOS device. Increasingly 10-foot devices that we're excited to invest in, where you can just put our content on any one of your screens. And all of those things are future growth drivers and investments we're making. Right. Again, I will, back to your point, Carol, your question about profitability. Our U.S. bike business is profitable. It has been for a while now. And so we're taking those profits and the proceeds of our IPO 2 months ago or 6 weeks ago, and we're investing in all these things that we think all of them are exciting and will certainly bear fruit from a growth perspective in the coming years.
Right. All right, John Foley, we're going to leave it there. The CEO of Peloton, always good to catch up with you. We really appreciate you spending some time with us. Promise to be all together the next time we all do this. John Foley, the CEO of Peloton. Those shares trading a bit off today, down about 7.6% post-earnings. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are slightly higher as the market tries to extend its record-setting gains. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 83, the S&P 500 up about a point, the Nasdaq Composite is up 15. Walgreens is considering going private. Sources tell Bloomberg the drugstore chain is exploring a potential deal that could become the biggest leveraged buyout in history. Walgreens Boots Alliance has a market value of about $57 billion. It's not where you've been, it's where you're going. Peloton is down 7% following its first earnings report as a public company. Although results beat estimates and it forecasts strong growth in the new year, questions remain about its path to profitability. Business is picking up at the nation's service companies. The Institute for Supply Management Services Index climbed more than expected last month after hitting a 3-year low in September. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
To buy your home, you became a house hunting ace, learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org. Because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Join us in New York City on November 21st as Bloomberg Pursuits convenes the second annual The Year Ahead Luxury. Speakers include Jennifer Hyman, CEO Rent the Runway, Alessandro Bogliolo, CEO Tiffany & Company, Robert A.M. Stern, renowned architect. Supporting sponsor, Diamond Producers Association. Participating sponsor, St. Regis Hotels and Resorts. For more information, go to BloombergLive.com/TYA Luxury. Invitation code radio.
In-depth analysis. Some people find love par chance. Me, I found love in my Citroën dealership. I looked at new Citroën C5 Aircross SUV with advanced comfort seats, and boom! They say, Emmanuel, you also get 0% finance over 48 months. I say, I love it. Visit your local Citroën dealership and find love too. New Citroën C5 Aircross SUV, the most comfortable SUV.
Citroën. Citroën UK Limited is a credit broker, not a lender. Conditional sale. Terms, eligibility criteria and return conditions apply. A guarantee may be required. PSA Finance UK Limited.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
next time you look up at the stars, think about this.
Inside you are the remains of a stellar explosion. You are made of stardust. And without the stars, there wouldn't be us.
I'm Guy Raj, the wonders of the universe and the people who still look up every night. Next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium.
He shoots it. It's good. It's a 1-point lead. They don't have a timeout.
Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss.
You're off to Wiggins, straight away on the triple try. Bingo! He knocks it down at the buzzer.
The defending champions, Toronto Raptors, are in LA to take on the red-hot LA Lakers. Tip-off is at 9:30 p.m. Eastern this Sunday. Search NBA on TuneIn to follow your favorite NBA team today.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Yes, indeed. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Master along with Jason Kelly, and we are live in San Diego, of course, at the Charles Schwab Impact Conference. And one of the topics we're going to talk about next is fixed income, which has had a pretty good year.
It has indeed. Yeah, we're eager to get into it with Kathy Jones from Schwab. She is here with us. We're going to get to her in just a minute. First, let's get back to New York. Charlie Pelt's got an update on the trade. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, thank you very much. Here's what's going on. Developing business story right now. The Federal Communications Commission has formally blessed T-Mobile's proposed purchase of Sprint Corp, publishing its order approving the merger of nationwide carriers, passed by commissioners in a closed-door vote last month. The wireless combination, though, still needs to clear a court challenge brought by the states. T-Mobile shares, they're up by 1%. Sprint lower now by 1.1%. The other developing story today, sources tell Bloomberg, Walgreens Boots Alliance, led by CEO Stefano Pessina, has been reviewing a potential deal to take the company private in what could be the largest leverage buyout in history. Again, this according to sources. We have got shares of Walgreens Boots Alliance up by 3.8%. Right now, we've got shares of Peloton tumbling 7.9% today, this after earnings. Peloton Interactive tumbling after frustrating investors with a focus on growth rather than profitability. CEO John Foley was our guest moments ago right here on Bloomberg Business Week. He had this to say about the quarter.
The consensus expectations on the bottom line was that we were going to lose $83 million, and we only lost $21 million. So we dramatically beat on the bottom line as we did on the top line. I think the consensus was $198 million revenue on the top line, and we did $228 million, so a 16% beat. So really nice beat on the top line, really nice beat on the bottom line.
Peloton shares, though, down now by 8%. S&P up 1 point, little change there. The Dow up 90, up 0.3%. NASDAQ up 17, up 0.2. 10-year yield 1.85%. Gold down 1.8%. West Texas Intermediate crude up now by 1.2%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thank you so much. We are live. Bloomberg Business Week is from the Charles Schwab Impact Conference. It's the industry's largest gathering of independent financial advisors. This is Bloomberg.
I'm fixing a hole where the rain gets in.
Our next guest job, no doubt, has been made tricky thanks to a low rate and even negative rate environment. And reading the tea leaves of the U.S. Central Bank, having said that, 2019 has been a good one for fixed income investors. Here to talk strategy and the bond investor's dilemma, Kathy Jones, Senior Vice President and Chief Fixed Income Strategist at Schwab Center for Financial Research, on site with us at the Schwab Impact Conference in San Diego. Nice to be here with you.
Oh, thanks for having me, Carol.
I feel like we've had so many conversations about the fixed income environment, and rightfully so. Tell us how you see it.
Well, as you mentioned, it's been a great year.
Yeah.
And I like to liken it to a kid's soccer game where everybody gets a participation award. If you showed up and bought a bond, you made some money this year.
I like that.
But the dilemma is, of course, now that prices are up and yields are down, it's going to be harder to replicate those returns in the future. And we're navigating an ever-changing central bank story. We've gone from raising rates last year to going on pause to lowering them. Now we're on pause again.
Right.
There's a lot of complicated stuff going on, and it's going to be tough to get good returns without taking a fair amount of risk.
But you have to commit money, or you have to commit to a strategy. So what strategy do you commit to?
So our strategy is threefold. One is on the duration aspect. We like barbells. So I have some short and then some intermediate and longer term bonds. Because if you stay all short, which people are tempted to do, if the Fed continues to lower rates, you're just locking in lower and lower yields, which is not what people want from fixed income. So you need to lock in something. The second thing is to stay up in credit quality. So we've seen a very long cycle with a big buildup in debt, particularly in corporate balance sheets. We want to be really careful about investing in the corporate bond market, particularly in the high yield market, making sure our exposure is to companies that can service the debt as it grows higher and higher, and even if profits continue to slow down or go flat. And the third thing is to sort of manage your expectations, right? You can't get double-digit returns in fixed income every year, so you have to find that balance between how much risk you're willing to take for the income you're trying to earn.
And one of the things we're always interested in is trying to understand how institutional investors are thinking versus retail investors. I know you've worked very closely with both, and certainly that's something on the mind of the legions of people who are here as well. How do you delineate that in this market? What should everyday investors be thinking about versus maybe what a big institution is?
Well, a big institution probably has more levers they can pull in terms of tactical plays in their portfolio, right? And they'll have the expertise and they'll have the credit research and they'll have people who can work on those things. If you're an individual investor, particularly if you're buying individual bonds and you're not relying on a manager, then you're just not going to have the same amount of options. So what you need to do is control what you can control. So look at the risk you're willing to take. Try to keep your taxes down. It can be a big chunk of what you pay, and keep your costs down. And then find that sweet spot where, how much risk are you willing to take?
What do you do for like an older community, right? And I think about that. We've talked so much about, pensions and how do they find, stable yield in this environment. What's your advice?
It's really tough. Yeah. We have a lot of clients who are in retirement or approaching retirement, and it's a real challenge with risk-free rates or low-risk rates being where they are. They can't generate the kind of income they used to in the old days when you maybe could get a treasury paying 4 or 5%.
Right.
Now it's 1 or 2%, and so you have to take some risk on top of that. And we like to kind of blend a portfolio, maybe some dividend-paying stocks, some corporate bonds, but some high-quality treasuries and municipal bonds, and provide that mix where you can get a little bit more income but not go way out the spectrum and be an all high yield or something like that.
What high-quality treasuries? I'm curious.
Well, we like actually a barbell of short and intermediate terms.
But not long term, like at this point, right? Why?
Yeah, for most people that is not going to make sense. A bond ladder maybe that extends out a little bit further, but we probably wouldn't go beyond 10 years.
Does the election factor into any of your thinking at this point? Just got about 30 seconds.
Not yet. It's too early to know where we're going with that, so we can't really base a strategy on an unknown outcome.
Right. Well, and we've all had such fun looking at the Fed. It feels like last year as well. Are you a little more comfortable where they're headed at this point? Yeah. Clear signals.
Yeah, I think obviously in their view we're in a good place, as they like to say, and they'd like to sit and wait it out. And the economy domestically is doing pretty well.
Right. Yeah.
So I think I'm actually fairly optimistic that we get a little bit better economic growth going forward, and the Fed can stay on hold for a while.
All right, great stuff. Kathy Jones, thank you for having us at your show. Senior Vice President, Chief Fixed Income Strategist at the Schwab Center for Financial Research, on site here with us at the Schwab Impact Conference.
And I feel like we're going to continue that conversation in terms of, having some optimism about the outlook. Our next guest is also with Charles Schwab, and we're going to talk about kind of rotating from defensive stocks into some cyclicals, and that certainly is an indication of optimism.
All that coming up next. First, let's get back to New York. Bob Boone is there. He's got your world and national headlines. Hello, Bob.
Hi, Jason. The brutal slaughter of American women and children just south of the U.S. border with Mexico has sparked an offer from President Trump to help Mexico wage war on that country's violent drug cartels. 6 children and 3 adults were shot and, according to witnesses, burned alive by marauding cartel members along a dirt road. Most, if not all, the victims were U.S. citizens from a Mormon community that has lived there for decades. On Capitol Hill today, Senator Mitt Romney of Utah said he agrees with the president that it's time to go after the cartels.
Obviously, it's a great tragedy when any citizens, Mexican or American, in this case American citizens, are brutally murdered. And it's moms and children. This is really unthinkable.
President Trump on Twitter called the attackers monsters and said the cartels have become so large and powerful that you sometimes need an army to defeat an army. Republicans keep demanding to know the identity of the whistleblower whose complaint led to the launching of the impeachment inquiry. On Capitol Hill today, Senator Lindsey Graham accused Democrats of misusing the federal law that protects whistleblowers.
We need to know who this person is, because without the complaint, there would be no impeachment inquiry.
The staunch Trump defender claimed the whistleblower statute was never meant to guarantee anonymity. It was meant to allow someone to come forward without being fired. On the other hand, Mitt Romney, also a Republican, said today the whistleblower should be allowed to remain confidential. New research shows the vaping device of choice for U.S. teens is Juul, and the top flavor for many is mint. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. I'm Bob Moon.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
What if you could keep...
It's another Tuesday evening. Yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and enjoy stunning white sand and crystal blue sea. Fly from London Gatwick to the Maldives with British Airways from £300 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
Watford, there's nothing like coming back to a warm home after a long day at work, especially when you've been stuck at a cold train station in rush hour for what seems like an eternity. Luckily, with Hive Active Heating, rated 5-star on Trustpilot, you can turn your heating on from wherever you are. And now with our new Hive radiator valves, you can even control your heating room by room. Search Hive Heating to buy now. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
You're listening to TuneIn, where you can hear all the audio you love in one place. Live NFL games, the hottest music, breaking news, and podcasts. Push play and go about your day, only on TuneIn.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Get social with TuneIn. Follow TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to discover what's happening in the app and around the world. Be the first to know about upcoming games and the hottest new music. Follow @TuneIn and always be in the know.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
Next time you look up at the stars, think about this.
Inside you are the remains of a stellar explosion. You are made of stardust. And without the stars, there wouldn't be us.
I'm Guy Raj, the wonders of the universe and the people who still look up every night. Next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium.
He shoots it. It's good. It's a 1-point lead. They don't have a timeout.
Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss.
You're off to Wiggins, straight away on the triple try. Bingo! He knocks it down at the buzzer.
The defending champions, Toronto Raptors, are in LA to take on the red-hot LA Lakers. Tip-off is at 9:30 p.m. Eastern this Sunday. Search NBA on TuneIn to follow your favorite NBA team today.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Lines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg World Headquarters. I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got the Dow close to the best level of the day, on track for a record. S&P pushing higher, barely up by less than half a point at 3,078, building on yesterday's gains. And NASDAQ up 13. That is a gain there of just about 0.2%. So for the most part, U.S. equities just off records as investors digest the latest earnings and economic data while awaiting more news about trade talks between U.S. and China. The Dow up 80, up 0.3%. S&P up by less than half a point. NASDAQ up 13, a gain of 0.2%. 10-year is down 23 seconds, yield 1.86%. Gold lower by 1.7%, $14.83 the ounce. Sam West Texas Intermediate crude up now by 1.1%, $57.20 a barrel. Brent $62.93, higher by 1.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Terrific stuff. Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar, Jason Kelly, live from the Charles Schwab Impact Conference, the industry's largest gathering of independent financial advisors. We're in San Diego, and this is Bloomberg Radio. So we talked a bit about the fixed income market just a few minutes ago. Let's dig deeper into the economy now, maybe what the Fed is doing about it and how stock markets so far are reacting, which
feels pretty positive at the moment. Omar Aguilar is here with us, Senior Vice President, Chief Investment Officer, Equities and Multi-Asset Strategies for Charles Schwab Investment Management. Easy for me to say. Great to have you here with us, Omar.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so as you sort of go around this lovely conference with all these people, how are these folks feeling on behalf of their customers about the economy? Let's start there.
Well, I got to say that, over the last 2 months, sentiment has actually shifted quite dramatically. Before, at the end of the summer, things didn't look very good, and people were, even though the market was very positive still, the concerns were very there, and the wall of worry was building up. People didn't know what the Fed was going to do. The trade war uncertainties were escalating. The tariffs were just imposed with new in December for the U.S. and China. People didn't know what to expect about earnings. There was a significant amount of uncertainty that people were concerned about going in through the end of the summer. When you think about today, and to answer your question about the sentiment, it's actually quite the opposite. There's a lot of optimism. On one hand, the Fed is on hold, so there's no more concerns about raising rates. There seems to be some positive developments about the U.S.-China relationship and potential constructive pieces about what that may do. Earnings have been very positive, and I think the projections for 2020 seem to suggest that the worst of the deceleration of earnings is over. So a lot of those components on the fundamentals of the market seems to be driving, a sentiment higher. I would probably say that the only thing that has been constant is that we're still in a global economic deceleration.
Right. So explain that. So here we are, we have U.S. equities churning higher and higher. Is it just that U.S. equities in comparison to the rest of the world look good in terms of opportunities? I mean, I wonder about valuations here in the U.S. market. Does it make sense that U.S. major equity averages are hitting records?
I would actually say that there's two things in what you just asked, which is, number one is the U.S. economy looks much better than the rest of the world. That doesn't necessarily mean that the U.S. equity market looks more attractive than the rest of the world. In fact, I would actually say that when you think about the relative valuation, as you think about it,
right,
it is clearly, favoring other markets. When you
in terms of valuation.
In terms of valuation.
Yeah.
Now, when you actually think about long-term growth, because of our demographics and because of what you can actually see where the consumption will be and the potential for future growth, that also flavors international markets. Our middle class is actually much, much smaller than what it is, say, in China and other emerging markets. And when you actually think of the potential for growing, that actually seems to be higher outside of the United States than in the U.S.
So where would you commit new money if you were an investor at this point?
Well, I think, you have to take back to the question about the U.S. economic cycle and where things are in the cycle. The U.S. economy is pretty stable and growing at the trend level, and it's actually still leading, the rest of the market. So what that does is that it does provide a significant support for other markets to potentially come back. Mm-hmm. Now, I think the key component there is going to be still, what is going to happen to the dollar? The big question is the dollar too strong for people to start rotating away from the U.S.? And I think the question is, in the next, 6 months, I think the opportunities will be to just continue to rotate into other markets outside of the United States. Because I think the opportunities are there, and I think the bigger question mark is whether the manufacturing recession that we have seen is going to turn these economies into a big chaos. We seem to be getting better. I mean, I wouldn't say we're out of the woodworks, but I think things are starting to look a little more, positive. And China, particularly, they're doing everything they can to support that economy.
Right. And when you sort of go a level down into corporate earnings, because we're mostly through this latest earnings season, were there things that jumped out at you thematically that you heard either from individual sectors, from individual companies, even that sort of bolster your case or give you just a little bit of worry as we go into 2020?
Well, I think the key component is, we saw a significant deceleration of capital expenditures, going in through this year. And again, a lot goes back to what I said. The sentiment, even at the corporate level, was actually pretty negative because, people didn't know what interest rates were going to go and people didn't know what was going to happen with the tariffs. And those two things could affect any company's, future earnings. So now, today, what we heard from a lot of the companies is that their outlook is actually much, much positive. They actually are not as concerned about the future of rates. They're also not as concerned as where the economy is, and they seem to be more constructive, thinking that with the lack of inflation and lack of tariffs, this could actually potentially bolster their earnings.
So I teased earlier that, because among some of the notes that you guys sent over in terms of your thinking, expect higher volatility and a natural rotation from defensive stocks into relatively attractive cyclicals. So tell us a little bit about that, because I feel like volatility, we talk about it every day, yet it's very low. What kind of higher volatility?
Crazy low. It's unbelievable.
Historically. And even when there's, a sell-off, it may spike, but it still stays at relatively low levels.
Yeah, and I think there's two sides of the volatility that I think people need to just figure it out. One is what is the overall market volatility? In other words, the movement that you have in the overall equity index or whatever is the market that you define. And that seems to be very, very low. But when you actually see the dispersion among sector performance and the dispersion among individual stocks, that has actually gone much, much higher all throughout 2019. If you look at the difference between, say, the technology and energy, that spread is huge. Now, when you compare how that was 5 years ago, it was actually very tight, which means that the difference in valuation across sectors is starting to just become bigger and bigger. And the same thing goes with individual securities. Any company that surprises and has positive earnings beyond their expectations goes up, maybe not as much as the ones that get down when they disappoint. But that dispersion, it was not there, just even at the beginning of this year. So that's when we mean volatility, that also means volatility of underlying components, not just the pure market.
So what's your single biggest worry right now as we get into the end of 2019 and into what is likely going to be, pun intended, a volatile year, at least politically and maybe economically?
And I would actually say that the only thing that continues to be the case, and we cannot defy gravity, is that we are still in a slowdown economic-wise. We should expect overall the U.S. economy as well as the rest of the world to continue in that deceleration phase. Now, the central banks have done enough to be able to support that, but in our view, that may not be enough to avoid a recession in the next couple of years. And fiscal stimulus in an election year, it is sort of the biggest question mark going into next year. Is there something that you can do to support if the economy starts to get a little shaky, or if the financial market starts to get more volatile than normal?
All right, we're going to leave it there. Omar Aguilar is Senior Vice President and Chief Investment Officer, Equities and Multi-Asset Strategies at Charles Schwab Investment Management, on site here with us in lovely San Diego.
Synchronized global deceleration. We had a synchronized global growth.
That was the name of your band?
Yes, it was my garage band.
Yeah, exactly.
I play a mean air guitar, I'm just going to tell you. All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar along with Jason Kelly, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
What's the hardest job?
London. Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and V Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Hey, can't watch the big NBA game because your life's just too busy? I've got some news for you. TuneIn Premium is the answer to all your problems. Hear every home and away game live or on demand everywhere you go. Just search NBA to listen.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Adam Grant, and this is Work Life, my podcast with Ted.
I study how to make work not suck.
And it's defined like this.
Blackout is a suspense-filled thriller from Endeavor Audio and Q-Code.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
Hey, NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We move into the final hour of trading. We have got the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing. S&P 500 index little changed, up by half a point. The Dow up 85, up 0.3%. NASDAQ higher by 13, up by just about 0.2%. U.S. equities holding close to records as investors digest the latest earnings and economic data while awaiting more news about trade talks between the United States and China. Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas President Robert Kaplan is taking comfort from the recent steepening in the yield curve and sees it as a sign that the U.S. Central Bank now has policy in the right place. Speaking with Bloomberg News at an event in Dallas, he said, quote, "I feel better with a more normally shaped yield curve." Right now, we've got the 10-year down 24, 30 seconds. The yield today, 1.86%. There are signs of renewed growth in America's service industries. That story now from Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
The ISM non-manufacturing index bounced back from a 3-year low in October, advancing to 54.7. Employment, business activity, and orders all improved, indicating stable growth. While October's ISM reading is close to this year's average, it remains well below last year's, and that's consistent with the slowdown in overall economic growth. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
Federal Communications Commission formally blessed T-Mobile's proposed purchase of Sprint Corp, publishing its order approving the merger of nationwide carriers passed by commissioners in a closed-door vote last month. The wireless combination still needs to clear a court challenge brought by states. T-Mobile shares are up by 1%. Sprint is lower now by 0.4%. Sources tell Bloomberg Walgreens Boots Alliance, led by CEO Stefano Pessina, has been reviewing a potential deal to take the company private in what will be the largest leveraged buyout in history. Walgreens Boots Alliance up by 4.1%. Gold lower by 1.7%, $14.83 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.2%, $57.23 a barrel. Again, recapping, stocks higher, S&P 500 index now unchanged. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, let's do a little Business Week economics. The team gathered back in New York City in our Bloomberg Interactive broker studio, including Kathleen Hayes, Global Economics and Policy Editor for Bloomberg, and Andrew Husby. He is a U.S. economist on the Bloomberg Economics team. Kathleen, I want to start with you. What are you seeing in the bond trade today?
We're having quite a sell-off. My gosh, you turn around and the next thing you know, you got the 30-year bond down. Let me just take another look at it. About what is it, 1.75%? I mean, it's a big move today. Basically, you've got yields back up to where they were in September. You've got a story on the Bloomberg. Down 125 basis points in price, yields at 2.34. It's the 10-year losing 0.75, 1.86. Global bond sell-off on China trade thought revised tantrum fears. And this is talking about the fact that the more the U.S. and China make progress on trade, the more you're removing uncertainty that has stymied investment, not just in the U.S., but around the world. The more you are removing the weight on manufacturing around the world, which has caused, damage to many economies. And, right. I would say proportionally, the sell-off in bonds today is much bigger than the rally in stocks. But I think there's a quote here, it's starting to smell a bit like the sell-off in the spring of 2015, but it's actually easier to put some reasons behind it. Pricing for
lower rates and momentum has shifted the odds of a December rate cut down to 9%. Rob Kaplan, Dallas Fed, saying, the steeper yield curve underscores his view that policy is appropriate. Fed ain't going to cut no more. That's the message for now. So bonds taking it on the chin today.
Well, let's talk about the economic data flow as well. Andrew Husby, part of our Bloomberg Economics team, U.S. economist. Great to have you on the team back in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio along with Kathleen. So, Andrew, what do you make of some of the economic data points? What's kind of catching your attention today?
Sure. This morning, we had a welcome rebound in the ISM non-manufacturing survey, and this comes in the context of a pretty severe decline starting earlier this year. Now, that trend is still intact, but there's some sense, if you combine this with the still weak but slightly better than expected manufacturing survey last week, that was below 50 for a third consecutive month. But if you look at this week's data, the context of a strong private sector in the non-farm payrolls report, you put these together and you're saying, okay, well, maybe this downturn isn't evolving into anything worse. There's a period here where we can pause, take a look at the data, and see how growth outlook looks from here on out.
Just quickly, what did you make of the JOLTS job openings number? That fell to an 18-month low.
So the interesting thing there is there's the top line number, which looks pretty weak relative to where we've been last few years. But what we looked at was the impact of retail vacancies on this number, and a lot of it is this adjustment in the retail sector as we're dealing with the shift towards more online shopping. Traditional stores need less of a holiday push. So that push is not as strong as it has been in the past, and we're seeing that in those numbers. So it's not as weak as the top line seems to suggest.
All right. Well, we're going to leave it there with the economics team back in New York. Andrew Husby, U.S. economist for Bloomberg Economics, and Kathleen Hayes, global economics and policy editor. So right here in San Diego, our man on the ground, John Gittleson, investing reporter, usually based in the City of Angels just up the road, but making his way through here. You've got some very well-read stories, as you often do on the Bloomberg. John, based on what you've been hearing here, what are you hearing? Chuck Schwab taking the stage, Walt Bettinger, the CEO, as well. What's the buzz?
The buzz is this is the meeting place for registered investment advisors. They're the people who are buying a lot of those mutual funds for you. They're managing your money in different ways. They used to be years ago, stock pickers, your stock broker, and now they're your financial counselor. And this is sort of a conference where they say, here's how you, RIA, can do your job better. A lot of those RIAs also are competing with big banks.
Yeah.
One of the sort of news bits that Walt Bettinger, the CEO of Schwab, highlighted this morning is how Schwab is building up its capacity for lending to RIAs or offering financial products to customers of RIAs, mortgages, unsecured loans, lending to RIAs so that they can build up their businesses too. So Schwab, which is sort of at the nexus of these advisors, is becoming more like a bank.
Right.
Is that a good or bad thing? You cover this world.
Well, it is a response in part to the fact that fees everywhere else are going down. Schwab already makes most of its revenue from net interest margin, the money that they hold in cash compared to what they can make on that cash. And this is just another banking service, another way for them to grow. They already offer some of this lending, but they're planning on expanding it a lot.
And so put it in the context of what you're seeing more broadly in the industry. We talk a lot about fees essentially going away. That obviously is a big deal, for that certain segment. But put this in the context of what you're hearing from the competition, and the competition is vast, it feels like, at this point.
Well, yeah, there's these industry trends of, free mutual funds. And Schwab, a month ago, announced free trades. So where else are they going to make it money? It's through advisory, and services for advisors. That's how they're making money. And then the other way is as a custody, as managing your money as a bank. So they're a public company. Their stock has to go up. They're getting more money under management, and they're figuring out little ways to make little slivers.
30 seconds left, John, though. In terms of kind of expanding into banking services, becoming more like a bank, will they get the same oversight that our traditional banks get?
Well, they already are, registered. But what they'll be able to do is compete against Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and Wells Fargo, who were banks that grew to be wealth managers and offer all these fund products, they'll be offering fund products, but also have banking opportunities.
All right, John Gittleson, we always love catching up with you. Our
never
man
know who
in
you
the
might run
investing
into
world. I
at
know,
these
right
events.
here, we get a message. I'm going to be wandering around, and there he was. He just, we stuck a headset on him, and he says a bunch of smart
we
things.
can have John on.
Exactly. All right, John Gittleson, thank
Love
you.
his reporting.
So much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week live in San Diego. Coming up, we're going to talk to a guy who's doing a lot of the work that John Gittleson just referenced. That's Bernie Clark, EVP and head of Schwab Advisor Services.
All right, back to Bob Moon we go with a check on world and national news headlines. Hey, Bob.
Carol, why are so many Republicans focused on exposing the identity of the whistleblower whose complaint led to the impeachment investigation? That's what Republican Senator Mitt Romney is wondering.
Going after the whistleblower, I think, is misdirected.
But some of President Trump's staunchest defenders, and Trump himself, keep insisting, in the words of Senator Lindsey Graham, we need to know who this person is. Today, Graham is taking a new tack.
The whistleblower statute was never meant to give you anonymity. It was meant to allow you to come forward without being fired.
Democrats, meantime, released hundreds of pages of transcripts detailing what top diplomats have said in testimony to House investigators. Jamie Raskin of Maryland says they all tell the same story and confirm what the whistleblower said, that President Trump tried to shake down Ukraine's government. President Trump is taking credit for seeking to end endless wars in the Middle East while reluctantly keeping some troops in Syrian oil fields. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports.
The president is leaving the area to its regional powers, Martin Indyk of the Council on Foreign Relations and a former ambassador to Israel said in a Bloomberg interview.
President Trump intends to retrench from the Middle East. And to do this, he is subcontracting to Israel and Saudi Arabia. Israel is certainly a strong power in the region, probably the strongest. But there's a glass ceiling on how much it can work with the Sunni Arab leaders because of failure to make progress on the Palestinian issue.
Indyk said U.S. pullout from Syria was a setback for Israel, and President Trump hasn't talked to Prime Minister Netanyahu for a long time. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air, and at TikTok on Twitter. I'm Bob Moon.
Full breakfast, cup of coffee, whatever you have in the morning, have it at daybreak.
What's the outlook for the pound if there is another election?
Nathan Hager.
The U.S. could still delay those tariffs?
And Karen Moscow.
It is the fifth major industry player to make some sort of zero commission offer.
Bloomberg Daybreak.
Bloomberg has more from Hong Kong.
Weekdays at 5 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You know your body, and you know when something's off, when something doesn't feel quite right. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, rashes, and fever. They could be signs of lupus. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. We're here to help you take control of your health. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking. Now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Join us in New York City on Like What You're Listening To? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Couldn't. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Far wing elevates. Triple bucket.
The war of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
To the sideline, the man bleeds for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now. Hear it live on TuneIn.
Pump fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the right
Search NBA today to start listening.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Adam Grant, and this is Work Life, my podcast with Ted. I study how to make work not suck.
And it's defined like this.
Blackout is a suspense-filled thriller from Endeavor Audio and Q-Code.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want. Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Global business news around the world and across the markets. Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network number 1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us number 1 in client support, number 1 in firm leadership, number 1 in operational support, number 1 in compensation, number 1 in professional development support, and number 1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA/SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. U.S. stocks, they are trading mixed. Let's head right over to the First Word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Here he is, Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Charlie. The Dow and Nasdaq
NASDAQ are trading higher, with the Dow currently up 60 points. S&Ps are down a point, while the NASDAQ rises by 10. Small caps gain 2 points, and the U.S. 10-year yield at 1.86%. 8 of the main 11 S&P sectors are also trading higher, led by gains in financials and consumer staples. Only real estate, utilities, and healthcare fell. Nasdaq Biotechs rise 7 points. Transports climb 52. Semis gain 10 points, and the VIX is little changed. Leaders to the upside in the Dow, Walgreens, Boeing, and McDonald's, while Visa and Home Depot led to the downside. After earnings, Kroger jumped 11%. Regeneron climbed 7.8%, while Uber fell 8%, and Shake Shack plunged 20% after its numbers. In deal news, Walgreens is said to be in talks to go private. And wrapping things up, some of the names pointing after the bell tonight include Jazz Pharma, Microchip, and Plains All-American. Live from the First American News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Charlie?
All right, we thank you very much, Bill. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type Squawk SQUAWK on your terminal. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks a lot. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly and Carol Massey. We're live from the Charles Schwab Impact Conference. It's the industry's largest gathering of independent financial advisors. This is Bloomberg.
I'm independent. You love this stuff. This is independent funk.
This event is all about registered independent financial advisors. And speaking of that, Schwab Advisor Services releasing its latest Independent Advisor Outlook study, something that will give you insight into what's on the minds of advisors and their clients. And it has a lot of things like recession, market volatility. We'll get into that. Let's talk to Bernie Clark. He's Executive Vice President, Head of Schwab Advisor Services of the Schwab Advisor Services Group, member of Charles Schwab's Executive Committee. And he joins us on site at the Schwab Impact Conference. And I'm going to have to do my darndest to prevent he and Jason from talking about basketball, because he could go there.
He's a St. John's guy.
Well, I would have called Big East in the past, right?
I know.
So nice to be with you.
Thanks
tell
for
us, though,
having me.
you were just up on stage talking with Chuck.
Yes.
Chuck Schwab. Tell us a little bit about that. And, we were saying how much he's a real guy. He's a genuine guy. He's seen a lot, and certainly in this industry, and as it's evolved. Tell me a little bit about that conversation.
It was such a pleasure and an honor. And I do see Chuck around the building, and we have meetings and those kinds of things. But getting in front of our advisors and having him, again, kind of recount his story of independence and trying to make sure that the focus is always on the client. I often say, sometimes when I have my most complex issues and you talk to Chuck about it, he'll say something as simple as, what does the client want? And you'll walk away with your tail between your legs and you'll go do what the client wants, right?
Focus, folks.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's right.
And so tell us what you found in this survey, because, we've been talking with some of your colleagues. We obviously talk to CEOs, economists, occasionally, well, Carol doesn't talk to regular people because, no, I'm just kidding.
I talk to anyone.
I know. But, how are people feeling right now? It's hard to get a read necessarily on the mood of the consumer, especially, which feels ebullient, versus a company which feels a little more cautious. What are your advisors saying to you when you survey them?
Yeah. It's the study itself is so useful because we've done it now for 13 years.
Right.
And we can track and we can look back on when certain markets were doing certain things. But advisors right now, they're a little less optimistic. Now, remember, we fielded the study in September.
Yeah.
And that wasn't quite yet at the point of escalation. And we've seen a lot of ups and downs.
After a very messy August.
Messy August. And now we've seen a resilience in the market yet again. And so I think what you're seeing is advisors planning for the long game, which they always do. They're seeing their clients are a little more anxious than they are, which we see in the retail space as well.
Right.
And individuals without help. And they're going to manage it as such. We're also seeing a slight generational divide, where some of the Gen X's and the millennials are feeling a little more anxious than the boomers.
Bernie, what are the discussions about public versus private markets? Because I feel like that has become certainly a topic at the top of our lists when it comes to anything and everything. And I'm just curious where you guys see it and what does it mean for advisors and their clients?
Well, advisors are really wise in that they are dedicated to their clients. And there's so many implications between public and private, but transparency is really the critical feature of all of it, right?
Right.
And making sure us as a transparent custodian for them fully regulated with virtually all regulators is a good thing to secure those assets, and advisors being able to take care of the needs of their clients without the entanglements that sometimes come along with company participation.
And so I want to go back to something you said, but this generational divide, because we talk a lot about that as well, about expectations as employees, but I would imagine this is a lot about expectations as investors and as advisors. So how are they viewing the world differently, and what's influencing that?
They're certainly a lot more cautious. And there's even a divide within the next generations, right? Because you have some who came through periods of prosperity and sort of despair, others who started in despair
and the younger are more cautious. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because they grew up in it.
They grew up
or
in
saw,
it.
saw what had happened to their parents.
They saw their parents and their families and what they went through. And again, depending on the orientation of whether you started well-to-do and kind of eroded some of that, or whether you went the other way, right?
Yeah, I just talked to it with, the younger generation in my family, whether it's nieces and nephews, and there is a real distrust of established companies that have been around for a long time. They're much more interested in the upstarts, and, it's certainly impacting the traditional industries. I want to ask you something, because we only have about a minute or so left. Tell me about Schwab's plans for building up capacity, maybe more like a bank, and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I always find it interesting when people say Schwab becoming a bank. Banking is part of your financial services, right? And it's incredibly important to see.
But it's not what you set out to do initially, right?
No, but integrating them now, right? Let's remember when Chuck started his dream, people really weren't in the markets.
Right.
Institutional investors were in the markets, the ultra-high net worth. This now has been democratized. And banking and broker-dealers really are more akin. And the next generations want all those services, the banking services as well as the broker-dealer services.
So this is going to be a bigger, important part of what Schwab's doing going forward?
Absolutely. We're going to continue to grow it. And it is about capabilities and services for clients. It's not simply about where the revenue is being generated.
So what kinds of services? Like, are we talking mortgages? Or
Absolutely.
Everything?
I mean, think about the other side of the balance sheet, the lending side of the balance sheet. Incredibly important for advisors, integrating their broker-dealer accounts, if you will, into banking accounts as well, checking, savings, the kinds of things that everybody really needs.
And just briefly, adding people, maybe making some acquisitions in this space. What does that look like?
Always interested in understanding how we can grow these things. Build, buy, borrow.
It's going to get bigger, is what
it's going to get bigger.
All right,
Great
we're going to leave it there.
All right, it's nice talking with you guys.
Thank you, Clark, EVP and head of Schwab Advisor Services for Schwab. He's here on site with us at the Schwab Impact Conference. Just got off stage with the boss.
I know he did indeed. I love that conversation. Hey, coming up next, we're going to get to one of the most read stories on the Bloomberg terminal. You're going to be surprised by what you hear because it is fascinating. It has to do with America's largest insurer. I'm not going to tell you what they've been up to, but like I said, it will be surprising. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly, Carol Masser, and this is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are mixed in the final hour. Although the major averages are extending their record gains, there are more stocks falling than rising. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 78. The S&P 500 fractionally higher. The Nasdaq Composite is up 12. It could be the biggest leveraged buyout of all time. Sources tell Bloomberg Walgreens Boots Alliance is considering a deal to take the drugstore chain private. Walgreens has a market value of about $57 billion. Job seekers had less to choose from in September. The government says job openings fell to an 18-month low. The number of people quitting their jobs also fell, a sign of declining worker confidence. Boeing CEO Dennis Muhlenberg is putting his own money behind the grounded 737 MAX. He'll forego his 2019 bonus as well as future stock awards until the MAX is flying again. The decision will cost him at least $10 million. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
the Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast.
How did the Yankees become this mega valuable team?
Where the money is flowing inside sports around the globe.
From the marketing perspective, where are the dollars spent?
From union heads to team owners, Scott Soshnick and Michael Barr speak to the names that power this multi-billion-dollar industry.
Boston Red Sox CEO Sam Kennedy.
National Hockey League Commissioner Gary Bettman.
Bloomberg Business of Sports. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Are you interested in a challenge?
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
All the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
You're listening to TuneIn, where you can hear all the audio you love in one place. Live NFL games, the hottest music, breaking news, and podcasts. Push play and go about your day, only on TuneIn. In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane to the rim, throwing right corner three. Another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
Active Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
And coming up on Bloomberg Business Week, we're going to
give it away.
You inside the magazine?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
But it's among the most read stories. I love this story. It's about America's largest insurer, but I'm not going to tell you what they're doing.
Okay.
That's a tease.
All right.
Like it?
That is a tease.
Yeah.
It's sort of a bullying tease, but a tease nonetheless.
I got a little edge this morning.
A little bit of an edge. A little bit of an edge.
Really?
Still morning time here. No, it's not. It's barely afternoon here on the West Coast. Let's get back to Charlie Pellet. He's got an update on the trade. Hey, Charlie.
Hi, thank you very much. A little bit of an edge to the S&P 500 index. Lower by a point right now, has been swinging between gains and losses. Bottom line, flat on the day right now. Might see a record depending on which way we go. We've got both the Dow and NASDAQ trading at records. Stocks advancing as investors digest the latest earnings and economic data while awaiting more news about trade talks between the U.S. and China. Now, as for the U.S. economic backdrop, Francis Donald is chief economist and chief of macro strategy at Manulife Investment Management.
What really matters here is, do we get a bottoming in global manufacturing? And critically, and this is what's really key to today's data, is does the manufacturing recession bleed into weakness in the consumer? And if it can hold strong, if that consumer holds strong, we don't see that contagion, then I'm certainly bullish. But we need a couple more data points in order to confirm that.
Right now we've got the 10-year down 22.30 seconds. The yield 1.85%. Gold down 1.6%. 14.85 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.1%. 57.19 a barrel. Sources tell Bloomberg Walgreens Boots Alliance, led by CEO Stefano Pessina, has been reviewing a potential deal to take the company private in what could become the largest leverage buyout in history. After earnings, Peloton Interactive down 6.6%. Uber down 9.3%. Shake Shack down 20.2%. Kroger shares are rallying up 11.5%. Recapping, stocks mixed. S&P now down by 2 points, down 0.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thanks so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly and Carol Masser here in San Diego. This is Bloomberg Radio.
So this story is among the most read on the Bloomberg terminal. It's about America's largest insurer. They're doing something very interesting, and this has to do with some of their patients. And this story, by the way, is going to be featured in the upcoming issue of Bloomberg Business Week magazine. It'll be on newsstands later this week on the Bloomberg and at Bloomberg.com. Let's get into it with Joel Weber. He's our editor at Bloomberg Business Week, along with John Tozzi. He's healthcare reporter at Bloomberg News, both back in New York in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. This is a story everyone should check out. John, just set the scene about what you looked into and what you reported on.
Sure. Well, United Healthcare, which is America's largest health insurer, is doing something really interesting with some of their most expensive patients who are on Medicaid. That's the government's health insurance for low-income people. And basically, for homeless patients on Medicaid who are really expensive, people who are going to the emergency room over and over again for care, spending long stays in the hospital, they're taking them off the streets and they're putting them in housing with support services, with the goal of bringing down the total cost of their medical care.
And so, Joel, help us put this in a little bit of context for what you've been doing in the magazine, because I feel like there's a thread here that you've been pulling across healthcare from a lot of different angles. So set the stage for us.
So it's really easy to look at the world, I think, and just see problems. And I think that's especially true when you look at the healthcare space. It just seems like everything's getting worse. People have fewer benefits. Mental health looks like this train wreck that's only getting worse. Healthcare costs keep going through the roof. And what I like particularly about John's story here, but also some of the other stories we've been able to scare up, is that there are actually people and entrepreneurs and businesses that are recognizing that some of these problems might have solutions that solve problems, right? And here's an example of it. It's this novel solution, like based on this Dr. Jeffrey Brenner, that's effectively who John profiled, who based on some of his research, it's like 1% of a population from a city that he's worked at was 30% of the healthcare costs. And that's mind-boggling. And so it's sort of like, how could we take this economic system and just totally turn it on its head? And it turns out, hey, if you put a roof over someone's head, a lot of the other things in their life starts to fall into place. And then suddenly we don't have these gigantic healthcare costs. So John, what was when you started learning about this, it seems so counterintuitive, and there's ultimately this sort of societal problem at root here, which is we're okay paying $12,000 a month for somebody to be in an ER room, but $600 a month to have somebody be in a house doesn't go over so well.
Yeah,
what's that about?
It's fundamentally a question about kind of how we allocate resources in society. And, what's happened in America is that more and more resources go into the medical system, particularly because we've kind of decided that the hospital is sort of the place of last resort, right? If you're
legally too, right?
Legally,
like if you walk
correct.
in the door, you get help.
That's right. They cannot turn you away at the door of the emergency room. So if you're someone who has nowhere else to go, if you're physically sick, if you have serious persistent mental illness, if you have substance use problems, and you need help, you go to the hospital. And this happens in every hospital in every big city in America. But the problem is that the hospital is not the place where these people can actually get better for the serious social problems they have.
Right. John, I have to say, and Joel, I mean, I have a sister who's worked in the world of mental health and illnesses for a long time, and she said that's part, she's talked so much often about that when they need care, it's all about the emergency room, and that's not an effective way for them getting better, in addition to the problems and the costs that come along with all of that. John, what I wonder is when you see somebody like America's largest insurer doing something like this, how much would that put pressure on the rest of the healthcare system to kind of follow in their footpath?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, one of the things we discovered in this reporting is that, for this works for United Healthcare for its most expensive patients, for the people who are really extreme outliers. But that's only right now a couple hundred patients in their Medicaid business, which is 6 million, right? So this is not a broad solution to homelessness in the United States. This is not something that is going to solve all our problems. But for people at the most extreme end of the cost spectrum with really serious problems, it seems to be a solution that works.
And to that end, Carol, I think it's maybe less about just doing exactly what other companies are doing than it is to say, what if we could come up with some completely out-of-the-box solutions to deal with problems so we're not just trying to solve problems the same way that we've always done.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I really love about this story is this radical approach, because it does feel like this is fundamentally broken and it's going to take something.
And business doing good. And business doing good, right?
Exactly. It's a must-read and one of the most read on the Terminal today. John Tozzi is healthcare reporter for Bloomberg. Joel Weber, the editor of Bloomberg Business Week. Thank you both so much. Let's get back to Bob Moon. He's got your world and national headlines. Hey, Bob.
Jason, a striking reversal by a top American diplomat who has revised his testimony in the House impeachment inquiry of President Trump. He's now acknowledging that he understood U.S. aid to Ukraine was being withheld until the country promised to investigate corruption. In other words, a quid pro quo. Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin says it's clearly there, confirmed over and over again by career diplomats who've testified.
The evidence is overwhelming and uncontradicted at this point, beginning with the White House's own contemporaneous memorandum about the phone call. It's very clear exactly what the president was doing at that point. He wanted a favor, though, from Ukraine, and then he launched into precisely what he was expecting.
It was a clear case, he says, of this for that. 3 committees leading the House impeachment probe are asking White House Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney to appear for a closed-door interview on Friday. They say they believe he has first-hand knowledge of President Trump's dealings with Ukraine. A brutal slaughter just south of the U.S. border with Mexico is prompting calls for a crackdown by the Mexican government. Mexico's president said he would discuss security today with the U.S. after President Trump urged Mexico to wage war on drug cartels. This following the killing of 9 members of a U.S.-Mexican Mormon family in the north of the country. This relative narrated a video he took of the aftermath.
This is for the record. Nita and 4 of my grandchildren are burnt and shot up.
The dead included 8-month-old twins. President Trump on Twitter called the attackers monsters. Global News 24 hours a day, on air and a TikTok on Twitter. I'm Bob Moon.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset
Asset Management. I'm Steve Meyer, President, Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Join us in New York City on November 20th.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and V Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
At home or on the go, stay up to date on the latest news and political trends with Fox's full lineup of shows. Plus, when news breaks, Fox has you covered with live updates and expert analysis on the biggest developing stories. Listen to Fox News Talk anytime on TuneIn.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane of the rim, throwing right corner three, another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
Next time you look up at the stars, think about this.
Inside you are the remains of a stellar explosion. You are made of stardust. And without the stars, there wouldn't be us.
I'm Guy Raj, the wonders of the universe and the people who still look up every night. Next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
And start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. S&P swinging between gains and losses, and not by a whole lot, in a very narrow range. S&P 500 now lower by less than half a point. The Dow on track for another record, up 62 points higher by 0.2%. NASDAQ is advancing 11 points to 84.44, up 0.1%, also on track for a record. So again, equities hovering near records as investors digest the latest earnings and economic data. 10-year down 21.30 seconds, yield 1.85%. We've got gold down 1.7%, 14.84 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude up 1%, 57.12 a barrel. So again, recapping here, S&P lower by a point, little changed. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no. Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Wait, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the drive to the close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
All right, everybody, time for the drive to the close. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Master, Jason Kelly, live from the Charles Schwab Impact Conference, the industry's largest gathering of independent financial advisors. Back with us is Neil Hennessy, Chief Investment Officer, Portfolio Manager of the Hennessy Funds, $6 billion in assets under management, based in Novato, California. So where is that compared to where we are?
Right in between San Francisco and where the fires are up north.
You are? Okay. Well, it's nice to have you here with us. Certainly a lot going on in our country and a lot going on in the world. I love talking to folks like you because, as I said to Jason, I love folks who have seen a lot of different cycles, have dealt with a lot of macro market issues. I don't know. How do you see this world right now?
Well, there's a lot to say something about the world. There's also something about the market. So do you want the market or the world?
Because they're different?
Well, one and the same, but different. From the standpoint, I hear over time, and I've heard it for the last couple of years, that the market's at its peak. It's going to come down. We've had the bull runs over. And we're
hitting records.
And I try and tell people, why don't you just close your eyes and think about corporate profits at all-time highs, cash flow at all-time highs, unemployment at 3.5%, mortgage rates under 4%, 500 companies in the S&P 500 sitting on over $5 trillion in cash.
So why is everybody
Okay,
so why is everybody so negative?
It's just because it's their nature. It's their nature to say, well, we've been doing this for 10 years. It has to come down with so long, but they don't give you any reason to. So when I look at the market, we're marching to 30,000, and then we'll take a pause and look at where we're going to go. But people are really looking at what's happened in the past 10 years. In the past 10 years, we've had 22 corrections. 22. There were 16 between 5 and 10%, but from peak to trough was 17 days.
Right.
It's nothing.
Well, and I love talking about, Jason knows this, like market cycle. Like, I feel like something's happened in our market environment where we get those corrections pretty quickly, and the market kind of smacks down when things get either overbought or whether there's issues in the market, and then we kind of resume up. But I feel like the market cycles have gotten more condensed. Is that fair?
Well,
no.
I think what's happening is we're recycling the headlines. It's either China one day, it's impeachment this day, it's whatever, and they're just recycling everything. But this market reminds me of the 1982 to 2000 market, where the market was up each and every year with the exception of 1990 when it was down 0.5%. The market was up, and that included the crash of 87. Real estate crash in the late 80s, early 90s, a dot-com crash at the end of the 90s. This is a market we're in. So then everybody starts to look at China and say, well, this is what's holding up the market. This, in my opinion, is no different than President Reagan dealing with Gorbachev.
Right.
Huh.
He just outspent him, and the Russian economy went south. Well, that's what President Trump's trying to do with China. If you look at China, it's very fragile now. Their banking system's very fragile. And if you put these tariffs on it, you notice we haven't seen anything in the consumer price index go up because of 25% tariffs, because we're not paying them.
Yeah.
The Chinese want the revenues. They don't care about the profits. So once you break their economy, and we saw that with Iran in the 70s, we saw with the Japanese in the 80s, we're seeing it now with the Chinese. And
same thing in your view.
Same thing.
So you think the Chinese economy could be broken by this? Wow.
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
Think about it. They've had, right now, in the last month or so, the Chinese government's had to step in and prop up some of these small banks in some of these rural communities. And I was just looking at one the other day, and I had my son, AJ. I said, hey, check these numbers. Let me know if this is right. But it's a small little community, and they got $8 billion in loans.
Okay, so
$8 billion, that's bigger than a community bank anywhere in America.
We love talking to you. I love what Jason said. So what does a China coming unraveled or undone look like?
Well, essentially what happens is then we'll get what we need to get, which is the Chinese can come over here and do business, but they don't have to join an American company. We want to do business there. We have to join up with a Chinese company. And when you do that, you have to give them all your intellectual technology. We don't, so it's not a level playing field. And you're also talking, it's government-sponsored companies that are coming and they're throwing a lot of money at it. But if you look at it, you put these tariffs on, they're going south, they'll give up, and we'll get what we want.
Well, let me just throw one other element into this, which is you have a lot of big multinational companies based here in the U.S. who are reluctant maybe to go as hard as you are describing. I think about what happened with the NBA. I think about what's happened with a lot of big, not just tech companies, but consumer companies who look at China maybe in a slightly different way because it is a massive market and they may be unwilling to go so far. Could that essentially prop up the Chinese economy for a while?
Well, look at big corporations and relate it back to what we're doing here at Schwab in the real world. Big corporations like regulations. It puts a small person out of business. So the more regulations, things happen. So in our business here and what we're doing at Schwab is the small person's getting squeezed. At the same time, the big companies, it doesn't really matter them because most of all people employed in the United States are the small companies. So, and they're not doing business in China. So that's the difference. You can say to farmers, you can do a handful, but the reality of the situation, the multinationals, they'll be fine. They'll
probably just figure out a different market.
So when does this China reckoning happen?
Next Tuesday, 3 o'clock. No.
No, I'm serious. Like, we have been, kind of so overcome with the China-U.S. trade headlines that it kind of is like, oh, yeah, there's another one. Oh, yeah, there's another one. Because that's just, they've been going on forever. So when does that's a big change in terms of Chinese policy. If we really, a U.S. company doesn't have to partner up with a Chinese company to do business over there. When do we get that change?
Well, the notion is they're going to try and hold out as long as they can to get through the next presidential election, and hopefully President Trump isn't there to keep going on these tariffs. I don't think it's going to go that far. I think their economy is a lot more fragile than people suspect it to be. Their numbers have never really been correct. We see the numbers of the companies that actually,
or lack thereof.
So, I'm looking at what's happening in the little banking sector and the government coming in. So I think it's a lot more, it's sooner rather than later, and I don't think it will get to the presidential election before they break.
Be remiss if 30 seconds left. What's your best investment idea right now besides Hennessy funds? Just quickly.
There's the mid-cap sector. I love the mid-cap sector. There's a lot of value in the mid-cap sector because mid-cap companies are big enough to survive an economic tsunami. They're also big enough to buy small caps that are accretive to them. They're also big enough to have a big corporation buy them and be accretive. So if you're going to buy in here, buy value in the mid-cap arena.
Such fun. Thank you so much. We love having you on. Neil Hennessy, Chief Investment Officer and Portfolio Manager at Hennessy Fund, $6 billion in assets under management, based in Novato, California, on site with us at the Charles Schwab Impact Conference. If you just came in mid-interview, you should go to our podcast and download it because you want to hear everything that Neil had to say. I'm Carol Massar along with Jason Kelly, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
It's another Tuesday evening, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to enjoy a warm Bayesian welcome.
How are you doing? Enjoying the sunshine?
Fly from London Gatwick to Barbados with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £699 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium.
He shoots it. It's good. It's a 1-point lead. They don't have a timeout.
Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss.
You're off to Wiggins, straight away on the triple try. Bingo! He knocks it down at the buzzer.
The defending champions, Toronto Raptors, are in LA to take on the red-hot LA Lakers. Tip-off is at 9:30 p.m. Eastern this Sunday. Search NBA on TuneIn to follow your favorite NBA team today.
Pulled into the end zone, and he's yanked in by a lineman for the touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
Oh, it's gone! It's into the end zone! Seahawks win! Touchdown!
This Thursday, hear the home and away call as the 4-5 Los Angeles Chargers visit the 4-4 Oakland Raiders at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
15-10, 5, touchdown, Denver!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Today at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg World Headquarters. I'm Charlie Pellet. Late session fade. Record yes for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. A retreat for the S&P 500 Index. Lower little change. Looking like a record for NASDAQ, up now by 2 points. Folks from PIMCO, by the way, ringing that closing bell. So U.S. equities mixed as investors digest the latest batch of earnings news along with the economic data while awaiting more news about trade talks between the U.S. and China. Neil Hennessy is Chief Investment Officer and Portfolio Manager at Hennessy Funds. Moments ago, right here on Bloomberg Business Week, he told us the Dow is going to 30,000, and he's got this advice for the skeptics who don't see those gains continuing.
Why don't you just close your eyes and think about corporate profits at all-time highs, cash flow at all-time highs, unemployment at 3.5%, mortgage rates under 4%, 500 companies in the S&P 500 sitting on over $5 trillion in cash.
So again, the S&P 500 index pulling back by 3 points, close to a record of 3,074 records for both the Dow and NASDAQ. 10-year down 21 seconds yield, 1.85%. Gold down 1.7%, 14.84 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.1%, 57.15 a barrel. Peloton Interactive tumbled after frustrating investors with a focus on growth rather than profitability. Peloton down 7.6%. Also after after earnings, Uber dropped 9.9%. Shake Shack plunged 20.6%. And we had shares today of Kroger after earnings rallying by 11.3%. Some of the other stories today, job openings nationwide among the economic reports out today dropping to 7 million in September, an 18-month low. Again, recapping stocks mixed, S&P lower by 3, down 0.1%. Dow Industrials up 31, a gain there of 0.1. NASDAQ higher by 1 point, also a record. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that's Bloomberg Business Flash.
Your next move will be your last.
Nobody move a muscle. Damn, Shippy, you got some moves. And I'm moving from town to town.
Time is money. Let's go. Come on, move it.
Shake it up. Shake it up.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, everybody, it is time for a look at some of the movers and shakers on this Tuesday afternoon. It's been a pretty busy day, big news flow. Charlie, of course, breaking down those closing numbers. Let's dig a little bit deeper into the S&P 500. And we had pretty much a mixed trade, almost an even split here. 253 names, Jason, in the S&P higher today. We had 252 lower, none unchanged. So that tells you a lot about where investor sentiment is. We may have seen some records on some of those indices, but nonetheless, we saw the markets overall kicking around and investors kind of split on the market environment.
Well, and it's interesting when you look at who the winners were in the market. You heard a couple of them mentioned by Charlie, one of them being Kroger. That is not a name we've been talking about candidly as being a big winner of late. But interestingly, profit next year better than analysts are predicting, and maybe significantly better. They're saying EPS adjusted will range from $2.30 to $2.40 next year. Analysts had expected $2.19. Same-store sales excluding fuel, that's a key metric, also should improve slightly next year. They have been really getting hammered by Walmart and Aldi. Those are pulling away sort of the value side. And then, of course, the Amazon effect also having a big impact on Kroger. But that is your number one gainer in the S&P.
Can we talk about Walgreens Boots?
Yes, please.
Alliance, because certainly that is among our most read stories on the terminal. And let's just take a look at Walgreens Boots Alliance, because that stock certainly on the move. It was up as much as 8% in today's session by the close, settling down to about a 2.6% gain. But yeah, man, this could be an incredible takeout, if you will. So Walgreens,
the news being there, a Bloomberg scoop earlier in the day that said there are at least early discussions about a potential take private equity firms potentially involved, including KKR, previously an owner of at least part of this brand. They installed the CEO, Stefano Pessina. It was we should point out, a wildly successful private equity deal. Alliance Boots was back in the day.
I love that brand, by the way.
Multiples of money. Alliance Boots?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really cool brand. You see it in Target. You see it in various drugstores, but big, obviously, UK-based.
Yes, Boots is,
kind of their farm, right? But what's interesting in this story, they say that according to our reporting, and as you said, it's a scoop, some of the buyout firms have so far shown reluctance to participate in a deal, according to those
it's massive.
in the know. Right, exactly. And it's unclear how feasible the transaction would be, and the company could decide against pursuing the idea, according to those in the know. But it's like, if it's on the table, that means it's could be a go.
Well, it's also the sort of thing that you wonder if it's out there and private equity is looking at it, if it becomes something that maybe some strategics look at as well. That was one person I was talking to around this story on the phone earlier mentioned to me that
you've been multitasking because you've been involved in this story.
I have been multitasking a little bit. That's what we do, as Charlie Pellet would say. That's what we do here at Bloomberg. Let's take a quick look at the VIX.
Can I just mention though, Under Armour, it was up another 5 points.
I saw that it was up. Yeah.
It was down 18% yesterday because of concerns about the investigations for the last 2 years. Today, though, it rallied up about 5.6%.
All right, let's look at the VIX ending up 1.79%, closing at 13.06. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door. It's Dave. Who? Dave.
Hey, Mr. Wilson!
All right, Dave Wilson back in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Talk to us about your chart of the day.
I will. What it does is show the relationship between U.S. home building stocks as tracked by an S&P index and interest rates, specifically the yield on 10-year Treasury notes. And the reason that connection is particularly interesting, Neil Dutta, who's the head of U.S. economics over at Renaissance Macro Research, was pointing out just how closely linked the two have been lately, in terms of correlation. In this case, you're talking about what's known as a negative correlation, which basically means that as interest rates, specifically the 10-year yield, goes down, the home building stocks go up. And that relationship, if you look over where it's been lately, it's been the highest negative correlation since 2001. So in other words, what it's really saying is that the gains we've seen in the builders have been basically a function of lower interest rates. And there's a real question, as we've seen the 10-year Treasury yield go up recently, whether the shares are just going to give back some of that advance. That's where Dutta's kind of raising the question. If these stocks are going to work, as he put it, they have to be able to stand on their own and rise in the face of higher rates, which they've struggled to do lately. If you want to know more, folks, send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
All right, Dave Wilson, let's get to your stock of the day. If you're an investor in EverQuote, if you're bullish on this name, you've had a really good year.
Oh, yeah, and today is a big part of that. This is an online insurance marketplace. They offer policies from Farmers, Liberty Mutual, Progressive, State Farm, and other insurers. EverQuote, founded in 2011, went public in June 2018. The ticker is EVER, EVER. Now, the share's performance is a tale of 2 years. Last year, they plunged as much as 78%. This year, they've made up the entire loss and kept climbing. EverQuote's earnings have spurred the recovery. The stock had a record surge of 49% in August, the day after second quarter figures were released. And today, they jumped again after third quarter results came out. EverQuote reported its first ever profit rather than the loss most analysts expected in a Bloomberg survey. Revenue jumped 61% and beat projections. Policy quotes climbed 81%, and the company raised full-year forecasts. The results and outlook sent EverQuote's shares to a record. They closed with their second biggest gain ever, up more than 28% on the day.
All right, Dave Wilson, thank you so much for that chart and stock. Let's get over to Bob Moon. He's got world national headlines. Hey, Bob.
Marauding members of a Mexican drug cartel ambushed 3 SUVs along a dirt road south of the U.S. border, slaughtering at least 6 children and 3 women, all of them U.S. citizens living in northern Mexico. The grisly attack led President Trump to declare that it's time to wipe them off the face of the earth. He's offering U.S. help to wage war on the attackers that he calls monsters. Senator Mitt Romney says the murdering of moms and children is unthinkable.
I agree with the president when he says Mexico has to really knuckle down and go after some of these cartels and stop this escalating level of violence, and hope that if there's a way we can help in that effort, that we're called upon to do so.
Mexico's president says it's a problem his nation must tend to, and it will. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer is calling on Republicans to examine the facts in the House impeachment inquiry and stop insisting that the identity of the initial whistleblower be exposed. Senator Lindsey Graham claims Americans have a right to know who it is.
You can't use anonymity in a criminal process. You can't use anonymity in a civil process, and you shouldn't be able to. This is a misuse of the statute.
Schumer says this is just wrong.
The calls to make public the whistleblower's identity are despicable. The whole purpose of the whistleblower law was to protect people when they had the courage to come forward.
Besides which, Democrats say the whistleblower's account has since been repeatedly confirmed by others testifying in the impeachment inquiry. Global News, 24 hours a day, on air, and at TikTok, on Twitter. I'm Bob Moon.
You
don't usually find the titans of finance, business, and politics sitting around together.
There's been this transfer of royal power and royal prerogative.
But amazingly, they're nearly all here every weekday.
Let's talk about their data. What are you looking for?
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow.
So where does the circuit breaker come from?
Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern.
He's got to respond, doesn't he?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The war of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
The
it.
sideline, the man, Fleet for three.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right.
NBA today to start listening.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the
checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
ESPN Radio and TuneIn just go hand in hand. Hi, this is Mel Kiper Jr. reminding you that all of your favorite ESPN Radio shows and events are right here on TuneIn. Just search ESPN Radio to begin enjoying it today.
Are mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles that transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically. Yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet, 2 developing stories after hours. WW International, formerly known as Weight Watchers, reporting revenue for the third quarter that was 1.1% below the average analyst estimate. Weight Watchers shares WW International plunging 15%. And Facebook says it unknowingly gave outside developers access to private user information shared within some groups on its main social network, including the names and profile photos of people who were part of those groups. A down day for the S&P 500 index, retreating from a record low by 3, down 0.1%. The Dow up 30, a gain of 0.1%. NASDAQ little changed, up by 1 point. 10-year down 20-30 seconds, yield 1.84%. Gold down 1.6%, $14.85 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.2%, $57.22 a barrel. Recapping stocks mixed, S&P lower by 3, down 0.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. We are live from the Charles Schwab Impact Conference. It's the industry's largest gathering of independent financial advisors, and this is Bloomberg.
She said, you don't understand what I said. I said, no, no, no.
So she watches so much. She watches the market. She watches the global economic environment. Liz Ann Saunders, we've talked to her so much over the years. She's Chief Investment Strategist at Charles Schwab, on site at the Schwab Impact Conference. So great to see you again.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Really nice. I'm always curious when you come to an event. This is your event.
Yeah, mine personally.
Your peeps.
I kind of think it should be yours, Liz.
I think Chuck's got the...
But what are you looking for? I mean, you're talking to a lot of these investment advisors, these RIAs. What is it that you're looking to find out?
The informal Q&A sessions are really telling. I spent a lot of time focused on investor sentiment, behavioral measures of sentiment, attitudinal measures of sentiment, and it's a great opportunity to hear what's on the mind of advisors as well as what's on the mind of their clients. And it really does color not just how I think about the market, whether you are seeing extremes of optimism or pessimism or maybe a lot of skepticism, right? But it also gives me input as to what I should be writing about, what I should be focusing on. There are times where I'll have a conversation, I'll think, you know what, I haven't written about that topic in 2 years. But if it's on the minds of our investors or our advisors, then it's probably something I want to focus on.
You know, one thing I wanted to ask you about, because I think you wrote about it relatively recently, that we actually have gone the entire show, I think without actually saying this word, is Brexit. And
hallelujah.
Listen, we have said that word
although there were headlines again this morning.
Many times. But how does that play into the market right now? There certainly has been some fatigue around it, and yet it does continue to have pretty broad economic consequences, however it goes.
However it goes. I mean, it's the ultimate can that keeps getting kicked down the road in terms of the deadline. I think that from a business perspective, that a lot of businesses, Schwab included, that had to make adjustments under the assumption it would happen, have already made those adjustments.
Right.
So I don't want to suggest that, you know, when it happens, whatever it looks like, it's going to be a non-event. But we've certainly been wallowing in this uncertainty for quite some time. And I think from a corporate structure perspective, I'm not sure it's going to be that epic a deal. And it looks like a hard Brexit is much less likely than it was.
It is interesting. I mean, just to follow on to that point, it is interesting how often we are hearing that now. This notion that, people have been like, yeah, well, I moved my bankers out, or, I moved my supply chain, or whatever it was.
People have to make decisions, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like we're seeing that in the corporate community as well, whether it's buying a company, whether it's selling off some assets. Like, people are, I don't know whether they're becoming just so immune to the headlines, whether it's U.S.-China trade, whether it's Brexit, right?
Although trade, that has been a much bigger factor in terms of what I talked about on stage yesterday, the bifurcation in the U.S. economy,
right?
And how weak manufacturing is, how weak business investment is, in contrast to obviously much stronger services, much stronger consumption side of the economy. And I think trade we're actually seeing the direct impact now. When the trade war first began 20 months ago, whenever it was sort of more esoteric, and no companies weren't really putting meat on the bones of what it meant. You started to see it in some of the confidence measures, but then it went into CapEx intentions. Now it's actually in CapEx and probably 2 quarters of decline. So that's real, and the adjustment of supply chains is real and happening.
Is it real enough to turn us into a recession?
Not yet. The rub, though, is that if we start to see the weakness in manufacturing morph through the employment channel, that's when you probably see the overall economy move into recession. It is the case that business investment, if you look at that as a component of the economy, which is about 15%, or if you look at manufacturing, which is only about 12%, both of them tend to punch above their weight, though, in terms of impact on the economy. In fact, not just recession. If you look at every negative quarter for GDP since World War II, we've had, it's 40 or 41 negative quarters. Half of them, business investment contracted, but consumption stayed positive, but you still had a negative quarter, even though consumption is almost 70% of the economy.
This is a really important point, because we talk about the importance of the consumer continuing to spending to keep things going. But the longer a cycle goes on, business spending, right, and capital expenditures become much more important.
And, the tie into profitability, too. So that's where things start to break down. For now, as I said on stage yesterday, the dividing line between the beleaguered parts of the economy, manufacturing, business investment, and the rest of the economy is pretty firm. The cracks that we would start to see would likely be seen through the employment channels. As of Friday's jobs report, so far so good. Right. But that's what I'm keeping an eye on, to see whether we're seeing this weakness start to morph into the economy more broadly.
All right, before we let you go, got to ask you, you mentioned some of the isms at the top of the conversation. Which ism feels like it's dominating, if there is one, the mood here? Because there are a lot of folks here, as you take the temperature, where's it landing?
There is a lot of concern about what is going on in manufacturing, and the likelihood that we don't get a meaningful lift. We probably get no more than stabilization, even if we get a phase 1 deal on trade. Because if you are making decisions, long-term capital investment decisions, and you've gone into pause mode as a result of trade uncertainty, I'm not sure a phase 1 deal lifts all that uncertainty. So I think trying to see some stabilization on the manufacturing side, I think that has been more top of mind. I think the services stuff is like, all right, good. At least that's not faltering yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, a lot to come for sure. Great to have you with us, Lizanne Saunders, Chief Investment Strategist over at Charles Schwab here at her party, the Schwab Impact Conference here in San Diego. Coming up, we're going to talk a little bit about philanthropy with the president of Schwab Charitable, and then we're going to catch up with the head of the Riveter. Like that.
I do too. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. The stock averages finished the day very close to their starting points, but for the Dow and NASDAQ, that was good enough to extend record highs. The Dow up 0.1%, 31 points. The NASDAQ edging higher by 2. The S&P lost 0.1%, 4 points. The Dow got a push from Walgreens on a Bloomberg News report. The company's CEO has been quietly leading an effort that could take it private. Walgreens is working to deal with pressure from online competition. That means Amazon. Wall Street gave Boeing a lift, about 2%, after the company's board said CEO Dennis Muhlenberg won't take a bonus or stock grants until the 737 MAX is back in the air. That won him a vote of confidence from the board, if not from the union representing United Airlines flight attendants. The union says it wants a global consensus on the MAX's safety before members will agree to work on the plane. After the Bell losses, the company formerly known as Weight Watchers didn't want to see in profits and revenue last quarter, down from a year ago. I'm Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. You out-salesmaned the salesman. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll have the info you need to get more for your future. Go to aceyourretirement.org, because when it comes to speeding past financial challenges, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Join us in New York City on November 21st as Bloomberg Pursuits convenes the second annual The Year Ahead Luxury. Speakers include Jennifer Hyman, CEO Rent the Runway, Alessandro Bogliolo, CEO Tiffany & Company, Robert A.M. Stern, renowned architect. Supporting sponsor, Diamond Producers Association. Participating sponsor, St. Regis Hotels and Resorts. For more information, go to BloombergLive.com/TYA Luxury. Invitation code RADIO.
In-depth. Get social with TuneIn. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest and greatest audio on the app. Explore exclusive content. Learn about hot new podcasts and get alerted when the big game, well, it's about to begin. Add TuneIn to your feed and be in the know when it matters most.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.